Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Council held on Thursday the 13th of July 2023. My name is Councillor Kevin Lagan. I am the Chairperson of this Council. Members and all present, we are streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting, you are giving your consent to being recorded. During each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. Could I ask that members avoid approaching the top table as it could create interference with the cameras and live stream because the cables are just running in the front. Please note that the YouTube live stream sound recording is dependent on the correct use of microphones. Therefore, can I ask that when invited to speak, you remember to turn off your microphone and turn it off again when finished. Please reference a page or a paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers and keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. Just one other notice while Chairman's, I'm suspending Rule 4, Part 8, Section 3, that the requirement to stand, that will be optional, members, please. Thank you. We move on to agenda item 2, which is apologies for absence. Tara, may I have apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies were received from Councillor Bell, Councillor Hughes, Councillor Morley and Councillor Pratt. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed, Tara. We move on to agenda item 3, members, which is the minutes of the Statutory Annual Council, which was held on the 18th of May. It is recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of May 2023, which is found on pages 7 to 14 of the agenda pack, are approved as a true and accurate record. I move this recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Morgan. Seconded. Members, Councillor White.
I'm really sorry, Chairman. I've got one more apology to Councillor Laybourne.
Lovely. Thank you very much
I'm
indeed.
sorry, I've got a funny tooth.
Yeah, but with well, thank you very much indeed for coming. So that's fine. We've got that, Tara, with the apologies. Members, with regard to the minutes of the Statutory Annual on the 18th, is that passed by assent? Agreed. Thank you very much indeed. We move on to the minutes of the Extraordinary Council meeting, which was held on the 8th of June 2023. And it is recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of June 2023, which are found on pages 15 to 38, are approved as a true and accurate record. Councillor Siddle.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'd like to make an amendment to the minutes, which is on page 27, the last paragraph, and it should read, and he referred to not being in a coalition, but working informally with other political groups.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Siddle. I take that amendment. Members, I move this recommendation. Councillor, my apologies, Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of other things as well. Page 21, item 50, under adjournment of the meeting, it reads that the meeting was adjourned following Councillor Fluker's proposal, and that should say Councillor Siddle's. It's just sort of a minor detail, really. There's a few issues with the naming of the groups as well in tonight's papers. The Maldon District Independent Group has been misnamed as the Maldon Independent Group, and the District Support Group has been misnamed as the Maldon Support Group. I think we do need the groups to be named correctly, please, clerks. I appreciate it's probably been quite hard to keep up recently. I'll raise this as we come to the relevant pages in the agenda pack tonight. But for now, in the minutes, we have on page 19, item 49 in the table, the Maldon District Independent Group has got the wrong name. And page 22 in the table, the same thing. And further down page 22, 3 paragraphs after the table, it refers to Appendix A, which I think is the one on page 107. Correct me if I'm wrong, because it's quite hard to keep track of it all. And in there, the group is referred to 3 times as the Maldon Independent Group, and they should all say Maldon District Independent Group, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Councillor Fluker.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. A couple of things. With regards to accuracy, page 18, motion 3, Chairman. This was a pretty straightforward motion that the Director of Strategy, Performance and Governance provides, without exception, updates regarding Essex-wide devolution to all future meetings council. That motion was carried, Chairman, but that's how I remember it, and listening to the tape, that is what happened. But I don't understand, therefore, Chairman, why the decision of council has not been executed, and that item doesn't appear on the agenda this evening, although I'm sure all members do welcome the written report from Mr Dodson. But in my mind, that does not satisfy this motion. But I'm sure you may cover that under any other items of urgent business. And Chairman, if I can just draw your attention to page 21, Chairman, and again, I've listened to the tape bit today, and it does tend to correlate with what's written in the minutes. And that was, Chairman, paragraph 52. The Chairman advised that therefore the Leader of the Opposition would be jointly held by Councillor J.C. Stilts, District Support Group, and Councillor J. Driver from the Liberal Democratic Group, Chairman. And that was agreed by assent if one listens to the tape. So, I mean, either this is right or it's wrong, but if this is actually correctly recorded, then that's going to save us an awful lot of trouble tonight. So, Chairman, over to you, but as I said, I have listened to the tape. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fluker. I just can reassure members that there will be an update brought for us tonight by the Director of Strategy and Resources on devolution. That will follow at agenda item 7. As for the other aspect of it,
well, my recollection was there was no decision by council. I advised you that according to the constitution, it was the Liberal it was the Liberal Democrats and the Maldon district support group leaders that when you just declared that.
That's right.
Just follow my. There was no decision by council.
no, that was it. That's correct. What you said, Councillor Fluker, is correct. There is the Leader of the oppositions currently stand as Councillor J. Driver and Councillor J.C. Stilts.
Chairman, for absolute clarity, then the minutes are correct, but we are going to amend a decision of council within the 6-month period, which I'm not sure we can do that.
Yeah.
If one listens to the tape, and if it helps Mr Quelch, I'm sure council won't mind an adjournment, so he can. But that was agreed by assent, and the way I read it, and others that I've discussed it with, that we actually agreed that these two members would be the two deputies of the opposition, deputy leaders or leaders of the opposition. I mean, from a governance point of view, I'm enormously concerned, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Fluker.
And you followed that.
Yeah.
I don't think
I did say that. I think it was in the resignation.
it was a motion. You just said
From
it.
my recollection of that meeting was that I declared that to be the two leaders of the opposition because we were in a situation where we weren't clear, there wasn't clarity, and for the effectiveness of business, that was a declaration at that time. Councillor Stamp.
Chairman, thank you. Mr Quelch also said it. It wasn't just you. Mr Quelch also said it, and the advice was clearly audible on the tape that that was the instruction that those two groups were. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. I'll just come to you, Councillor Morgan, in 1 second. I just want the monitoring officer to comment, please.
My recollection is, yes, I spoke to the chairman, asked my view. I gave him advice that according to the constitution as it stood, the leader of the Liberal Democrats and the leader of the Maldon District Support Group were joint leaders of the opposition, and then the chairman accepted that advice and just declared that was the case. I don't recall there being a motion or it being seconded and a vote being taken on that at all. It was based on my advice that the chairman made the declaration. That was my recollection.
Yep, and that's exactly as
Well,
I
Chairman,
said.
if
There
let me
was
come back, I think
last time, Councillor Fluker.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Hopefully not for the whole evening.
Well, hopefully not.
But yeah, Chairman, if that's the case, then that should really be reflected in the minutes. And again, that would have saved the last 5 or 10 minutes. But because it is very ambiguous. Yeah. In my mind, the leaders of the opposition have been appointed, and I think if anybody listened to that tape, they'd agree with me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Thank you for your diligence in going through the meeting and the minutes of the meeting. So with those amendments, members, I move this recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Thank you very much indeed, Councillor White. Again, can I agree those minutes by assent, please, members? Thank you very much indeed. And thank you very much. We move on to agenda item 5, which is declaration of interest. To disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests relating to items of business on the agenda having regard to paragraph 9 and appendix B of the Code of Conduct for members. And members are reminded that they're also required to disclose any such interest as soon as they become aware and the need arises throughout the meeting. Thank you, members. We move to agenda item 6, which is public questions. I can confirm we've not received any questions from the public. So agenda item 7, before I move on to Mr Dodson as stated, most members would understand that previous councillor Bob Boyce has been rather unwell. On behalf of the council, we have sent a card wishing him all the very best, and I'm sure that this chamber tonight unanimously wishes Mr Boyce all the very best for a speedy recovery and sends our best to his family. Thank you very much indeed, members. Mr Dodson, could I go past to you, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for agreeing my request to do a verbal update regarding devolution. I don't have a great deal to update members on, but I did want to draw members' attention to the slide pack that I circulated to all members, and maybe just touch on that briefly, because that does outline what devolution deals are. And they are, as the name suggests, the devolution and devolvement of powers and funding from central government to local government. It's important as well to, I think, to talk about what they're not. Devolution deals aren't about local government reform or reorganisation, or taking funding or powers from existing local authorities, or changing the sovereignty of local authorities. A devolution deal is made with upper tier authorities over a fixed functional economic area or a county-wide area. In the case of Essex, that would be Greater Essex. And the deal that's being discussed is between Thurrock, Southend, Essex County Council as the upper tier authorities of Greater Essex with central government. There is an agreement in principle that should that go ahead, and they've submitted an expression of interest that went in March this year, which government have accepted as a valid expression of interest and have opened discussions around that. There are now a number of subgroups established to look at that, one of them being governance, and under that governance it is agreed in principle that the districts would have a voice within any combined authority should it be developed, which is by no means set in stone yet. There could be 3 levels of deal, and it would only be at level 3 that there would be a combined formal authority with a combined mayoral authority. But it is at that level that the biggest prize comes in terms of the funding and the powers that would be devolved from government. So I've sent the slides out. I'm happy, to take questions from you when you've had a chance to digest them if you want to email me, or I'm happy to do a briefing for all members. But in the first instance, the devolution working group, as appointed at the last meeting of council, will be meeting on Monday, and that will be an opportunity with that group to go through those slides in more detail, but also to dig a bit more into the deal, and particularly the opportunities that there might be for Maldon District Council that arise from any devolution of powers and funding from government that might enable us to access some of that funding and deliver projects for the council. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr Dodson. Thank you. Mr Dodson's actually said that he would like to have an all-member briefing and send the information out. So if you have a short... Yeah, but following the meeting of the devolution working group. So I don't mind taking small questions quickly if you have something that's burning. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry I didn't speak, actually, and stand up when I was just speaking.
Sorry, we've suspended
Has
that.
the council managed to do, if you go for the one where it's a mayoral authority, which I think everybody knows that's the one where you're going to go to get the money. Has this council had any chance to actually look at the risks behind that, the risks and benefits of actually doing it for that, and how much money we're going to get as a council?
Thank you.
And if you haven't, when?
Mr Dodson.
We can look at risks and benefits, but the ultimately, this council does not have a say in whether the deal goes ahead. As I said, the deal is between the upper tier authorities and government. There's an in principle agreement that districts would have a voice on any governance that follows that, but in terms of the agreement, we don't have a vote on that as such. So of course, through the devolution working group, we can look at the opportunities and any potential risks that are linked to that, and that's part and parcel of why that devolution working group is being set up.
Thank you, Mr Dodson. Thank you. Members, just have one more announcement. I'd actually like to welcome Councillor Stratton to the Chamber as well this evening. Thank you very much indeed. Councillor White, couldn't see you, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, mine was when I'd been to the sorry about my voice. When I've been to the devolution meetings, it actually said that the money is all going to be decided pretty much at the higher tier levels, and we're little more than participants. And any funding will go on need and requirement. And like highways, it seems to be we're right at the end of the line. So I really think that we need to look into the finance side to see whether it's actually worthwhile for us or not, because we've done pretty well financially, and I wouldn't want to see us being at the end of the end of the end of the end. So it's something, again, that needs to be looked into. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White.
I don't think anything's been decided. Well, nothing has been decided in terms of the finance yet, but I want to be really clear. There isn't an opt-out option for this council. If there is a devolution deal, it will cover the area of the Greater Essex. It won't be except Maldon if members say we don't want to be part of it. A deal would cover Greater Essex, and that's the principle of it, because Greater Essex, including Maldon, is covered by Essex County Council, who would be leading the deal.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr Dodson. Members, we'll move on to agenda item 8, which is the minute book. This is to consider the recommendations coming forward from committees as detailed below. So this, please note that the minutes of these meetings are not enclosed, as they've not been approved at committee level. And there is on pages 39 to 102 the Strategy and Resources Committee, which I'd welcome Councillor Fittick to take us through agenda items 10 and 11, please.
Okay, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
We have two recommendations from Strategy and Resources. The first is agenda item 10, area of special control for advertisements. The recommendation is that the area of special control order for advertisement attached to Appendix 1 is reconfirmed. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Okay.
Thank you.
The second recommendation is agenda item 11, business rates discretionary rate relief. The recommendation is that the discretionary non-domestic rate relief scheme, Appendix 2, be updated to include an additional scheme. Can I have a seconder, please?
Seconded.
Okay.
Okay, members, thank you very much, Councillor Fittick. Members, they've had the two recommendations. They've been seconded. Do we agree these by assent? Agreed. Thank you very much indeed. Move on to agenda item 9, which is minutes of the meeting of the council. I propose that these minutes are noted by assent. Any comments to be made? Excellent. Move on to agenda item 10, which is a statement by the leader of the council. Councillor Siddle, please. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you.
Good evening, members. The results of the election produced a council that at first glance would appear to be unstable due to the number of different groups. This, however, provides the opportunity for different political groups to have to work together in the best interests of the council, residents and the districts. That's what we all need to do, as surely that's why we stood for election. Over the past few weeks, the different groups have found a way through and found a solution for administering the council. We now have the Maldon District Independent Group in a minority administration. We all know, however, that we can only run the council together through consensus and collaboration. We all need to find agreement and demonstrate to residents that we can act in their interests. The different groups and those that stood as independent councillors at the election may have said different things during the election. Some have even run negative campaigns and made negative comments. Yet politics is a funny game, as you certainly would not be able to get away with that in other situations. However, as the outgoing chairman of the LGA, James Jameson, said recently, 90% of what we do in local government has nothing to do with politics. We therefore move on progressively and work together in the best interests of the district. I would like to thank the LGA for the support it has provided during the past 2 months. We will continue to work with the LGA and seek their advice and expertise. This will enable us all to change the organisation progressively. As part of that change, there will be an away day next month where leaders, both political and corporate, alongside our respective LGA group peers and LGA officers will work together. This will provide an opportunity for all representatives to work together in the interest of the council. I'm sure that everyone wants to demonstrate their commitment to the council to creating change by attending. It is through these initiatives we can create change and also demonstrate to the wider audience that we want to move the organisation on from the past problems. We all want to make a difference for our residents and businesses, and I know the Maldon District Independent Group members feel the same. We can all work together. This also applies in the way that we work with officers. We should be professional in the way we deal with officers. After all, we are all working for the same organisation. We need to support officers in their delivery of the role and challenge them in an appropriate manner. However, in the cut and thrust of debate, we must respect the difference between challenge and confrontation. We have to ask ourselves, do we want to be seen as an organisation that is constructive, positive and motivating for both members and officers, where we create a culture of inclusivity and trust, so we have a positive image externally as an organisation where officers and members look forward to interacting. The alternative is something we should challenge. We need to let officers get on and deliver. We have processes and procedures defined, and our constitution states officer decision. Those decisions and actions are reported back to working groups, committees in a timely manner. We need to let that happen and build trust with the officers. If we want to get involved in operations, then we should be officers, not councillors. If there's a problem or a complaint, we need to inform us officers and then the work to take place to rectify the situation. To ensure that officers can deliver to the district, we have now recently changed the structure of service delivery. This now creates distinct roles and structure within each of the different teams. This will enable the planning department to focus upon all aspects of strategy delivery. Like all authorities, it can be a challenge to retain and recruit staff in planning. Maldon can be proud of the work it is doing in this area and is leading on this in Essex and working with the local government association. Officers are working on a new customer service strategy, which we're all looking forward to seeing. The way we interact with residents, how we contact us, needs to reflect the requirements of our residents. Not all residents are able to access services digitally, and we need to ensure that they can speak to the officer if they require. We need to explore online interaction and how residents can interact through online chat and chatbot functions in the future. Leading from that change, we need to look at how the organisation and leadership is structured. We are unusual in not having a chief exec. We need to come up with the right structures for the organisation and also learn from other authorities what has worked for them. We've therefore asked the LGA for advice on this matter, and they will present possible structures for the size of our council. We need to go back to previous LGA advice and look at how our planning committees are structured and how we make planning decisions. We also need to ensure that our constitution is updated for multi-party politics, as that is unlikely to change in future elections. The LGA Finance peer review took place earlier this year, and we're discussing the recommendations for that later this evening. All local authorities are under financial pressure, and we need to focus on what and how we need to deliver it. We are an authority that is debt-free. In the past, the council has been risk-averse. This has also had the negative consequence that, unlike our authorities, we have very little commercial income. We need to look at commercial strategies, how they've developed, and when the opportunity allows us. These opportunities are much narrower now, and they have to be complicated by the lack of resources and appetite for risk. We need to review our corporate projects and be creative on what other opportunities may be available to the district. We need to look at our assets and how they are utilised in the best interest of the district. We need to ensure how and the way we partner with our organisations, and that means taking up-to-date asset management plans and strategies. If we set up the finance group with its new terms of reference, it will enable all political groupings and representatives to make the right recommendations and explore how we deliver. We are in a situation where we are in strong reserves. However, if we keep things as they are, that will diminish. Our local development plans are at a crucial stage of development, and we need to reflect on what might change on the MPPF. At the moment, there are 51 authorities in the country that have paused their local plan. There will always be a target set for government. We're in a good position in terms of our 5-year housing land supply, and we need to recognise how that moves forward in the future. The local development plan is something that all members can demonstrate their commitment to. It's how we will shape the district. It's how we will leave that impact and legacy. This needs to be done alongside protecting our environment. We need a district that is sustainable in all senses of the word. Our high streets and towns are all attractive places and known for their character. We need to enhance those and ensure that they are places where people can come to events and use them for other purposes. We need to restore our link to wider infrastructure and how we connect Maldon via a rapid transit link to the rail network. We need to look at creating a transport hub with sustainable transport methods. This will relieve pressure on roads and create opportunities for both residents and districts. In the rural parts of the district, we need to ensure that the long-term further investment so that public transport is sustainable and meets the needs of the residents. Then we can exploit the opportunities to have sustainable in the long term. One of those things in terms of the influence is how we deliver infrastructure. We all had similar doorstep conversations during the election about the local infrastructure, about transport, about doctors, about NHS facilities. Working with our partners to ensure delivery and for our officers to continue to lobby as strong as possible the investment and delivery implementation. One of the key partners we have is One Maldon District. This partnership now has a clear action plan and provide more benefits in the longer term. We need to ensure that all our partners commit to delivering for our communities alongside ourselves, that it provides the opportunity to improve health and wellbeing outcomes for our residents. This, alongside the support the council provides, is particularly important at the moment when many of our residents are dealing with the cost of living crisis. We need to build our connection to parish and town councils so that a community network can be built across the district. We already have the Town and Parish Council Engagement Forum. This is going through a process of change and needs to become a forum for both clerks and chairmen and mayors to meet representatives from the district. We can then inform, engage and empower parishes and councils and respond directly to their needs. Our approved corporate plan for the period of 23 to 27 was developed this year and sets out our visions, our priorities and our guiding principles. It demonstrates that we're a local authority where quality of life matters, and it is our aim to improve this over the next 4 years. It's also vital that we make sure we have a sustainable district in social and economic terms, where we protect our characteristics environment and that we seek investment for the future. Our corporate plan is well evidenced and has a vision that staff are committed to with clear priorities. Our service managers set out their delivery plans, and we as members need to support them in enabling and meeting the challenges we face as an authority. Expectations of what local authorities can deliver are higher than ever from our partners, who also face financial burdens. And no doubt this remains making some tough decisions about what we can actually do over the next 4 years. Where we need to ensure that projects are ready for future levelling up funding, in addition to this, we also want to put a spotlight on the government's designated district as a priority 1 level area. We are committed to delivering our £1 million UK shared prosperity funding plan and continue our efforts to secure funding. All funding we successfully secure for the district is going to help forward investment, exciting projects that achieve a great outcome for people, places and communities. It is through partnerships with other local authorities that we can engage and also improve the delivery of services, both in the district and across Essex. All local authorities are under financial pressure. We need to establish both in the short and long term how we might work with other authorities to explore opportunities that are available. We are already in the North Essex Economic Board and the North Essex Association of Local Councils. It seems that no matter who wins the next election, in some form or other, devolution will happen. This does not threaten the sovereignty of the council. We need to work with whatever level of devolution deal is secured to maximise what is best for the district, its residents and businesses. By taking this approach, we will maximise the opportunities. Finally, a statement that has been made about myself is that I'm ambitious. My ambition is to achieve more for the district, which I hope that is something we're all in agreement. As councillors, that should be something that motivates us all, that we want for the best for the district and that we are ambitious for our residents. Together as councillors, we need to focus on making a difference, delivering and creating a legacy, and that's why I stood as a councillor. As I said last week, my aim, and I hope yours is to put politics aside and to ensure the council works hard to support the challenges our residents are facing through these really hard times. We all need to deliver on making a difference, delivering on the pledge to make where we live a place where quality of life matters. Together, all these aims ensure we have a district that is truly sustainable in all sense of the word, delivering for now and also creating strategy for the future. Sustainability for residents, businesses, the environment, our partners, and those who come after us, making a difference to the quality of our life. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Siddle. Members, I'd like to invite the leaders of the current opposition, which is Councillor Driver and Councillor Stilts, to make a response to the leader's speech if they wish. So it's completely transparent. I'm going to do it by surname alphabetically. So Councillor Driver, please, if you wish to make comment.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just check on whether all three leaders are going to have an opportunity to speak?
Okay, currently at the moment there's two leaders of the opposition. There is a
Okay.
motion coming forward later on to amend that.
Okay,
So that's where we are at the
thank you,
moment,
Chair.
I'm afraid.
The context within which we find ourselves and in which the council has to function is one with no overall control. The electorate has made their choice and we have to work with it. From the outset, the Liberal Democrat position has been that we would not, at this stage, seek to form a coalition or indeed to agree any formal or informal arrangements with other political groups. However, we have consistently stated that we will work constructively with others to enable this council to function. We had proposed joint political leadership of the administration by all groups, but this wasn't supported. And so, in the spirit of constructive engagement, we supported the leader of the Maldon District Independent Group to lead the administration, and we will continue to do so. There are huge issues facing Maldon District. On the doorstep, there is considerable anger at the way in which housing developments have progressed without the associated infrastructure. And there are concerns from residents about access to council services which have been severely stretched. There is much truth in these concerns, and the council needs to do better. But for improvements to occur, the council needs to function effectively. And for this to happen, we need to work together. There are differences between us, and there will be challenge, and rightly so. But that challenge must be constructive. For too long, the image of the council has been poor, with councillors seen to be bickering and backbiting. This is not going to move us forward. As an onlooker, it has also appeared that councillors and officers were part of different teams that spent time warring with each other. Faults, I'm sure, are never just one-sided, but residents deserve better. The Lib Dems believe in constructive and respectful dialogue, as I'm sure the majority here do as well. I hope this can characterise the behaviour of this council, and we can find ways of working that acknowledge difference but look for common ground that can enable this council to function effectively for the residents we all serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Driver. Councillor Stilts, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I would like to state that the Maldon District Support Group is made up of 6 independent councillors who are not aligned with the Maldon District Independent Group. We look forward to working with the other groups for this municipal year. We will work for the people of Maldon, our business and customers, to ensure they get the best service and value this council can deliver. We will challenge the administration when we feel this is not being achieved. We will robustly challenge the medium-term financial statement and work with officers to stem the flow of residents' cash from our reserves. Through challenge and innovation, we will work with officers to achieve balanced budgets on an annual basis, and to work with officers as well as all other councillors to achieve our aims and visions of the corporate plan.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Stilts. Thank you, members. Thank you for the speeches. Councillor Stilts.
Allow me just to say I think it is really unfair that Councillor Morgan maybe doesn't want to speak, but I really do think he should, and you can actually allow that to happen if he does want to speak. He should be able to respond, because we're all talking about working together here, but we've got one group of elected members that have not been allowed to speak. And it's fine if he doesn't want to do it, but I wanted to, and can that be minuted that I think he should be allowed to speak?
Yep, just bear with me a second. Yep, I think it's a very fair request. Councillor Morgan, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, I would just like to thank the leader, obviously, for his speech. There's much in there that was of interest. And I particularly want to take up the point where he was saying that the elections provided the opportunity for different political groups to work together in the best interest of the council. The Conservative group, which is part of the opposition, will stand for Conservative principles, but is above all cognizant of the fact that it represents, or we are members of Maldon District Council with a responsibility towards the residents in our respective wards. We will oppose, but we will oppose responsibly. It is not our wish to bring anything down, and therefore, going forward, we would like to consider there is a sort of I feel a sort of groundswell of cooperation within the speeches that we've had that have preceded me, and I would like to say that we will be taking our part in that. There is a lot ahead of us. The LDP has got to be sorted out, and there's devolution, and we will hope to work together constructively to make sure that Maldon District Council moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Morgan. Thank you, members. Members, we will now move on to agenda item 11, which is notice of motions. We have several motions, members, as you're aware, on the agenda papers. So I'm going to go through them quite carefully as we move forward. So I'd like to invite Councillor A.S. Fluker. So in accordance with the notice duly given under Procedure Rule 4, Councillor Fluker to move the following motions duly seconded by Councillor J. Stilts and W. Stamp. Councillor Fluker.
Thank you, Chairman. Agenda item 11A. Chairman, I won't read the motion, but I'll go straight into what I have to say in relation to it. Chairman, even to the untrained eye, the tactical and strategic voting patterns at the statutory annual meetings by members of the Maldon District Independent Group, Conservative Group and Liberal Group and others were clear to see. It's worth noting that following the elections, the largest political group of the council, the Conservative Group, even with an offer of support from independent councillors, made no attempt to form a coalition. The Constitution alludes to the fact that the second largest political group at the council forms the opposition, which is contradicted by the fact that the Conservative Group is the largest. Following several behind closed door meetings by the aforementioned political groups, a deal was struck between the parties concerned and others to populate the key positions of council from each of the parties involved in those meetings. This was agreed in unison and by way of a coalition of minds. In summary, the key positions were traded against the support, tacit or otherwise, of making the 6 members of the Maldon District Independent Group, a politically lined party, the official administration of the council. It's difficult to argue that at that point the parties so mentioned were not in a political coalition whereby they agreed between themselves to take the key positions
Councillor Fluke,
of the
could I
council.
just interrupt. We were asking to to deliver the motion as printed on your.
Well, Chairman, I'm coming to the motion and then I'll move it.
But we've agreed to say that. Okay.
Yeah. So, Chairman, I'm coming to the end anyway. So, in the best interests of delivering the business and policy of council in a timely and coordinated way, the parties so concerned should accept that they are part of a coalition and work together collectively with officers to deliver for our residents, businesses and customers. The simplicity of them working together is for the benefit of this council. So, Chairman, on that basis, it wouldn't seem unreasonable to assume that the balance of members, principally the independent councillors who form the Maldon Support Group and Councillor Lay, would be the second largest group of members and therefore the opposition. I therefore move my motion. Thank you, Chairman.
So you move motion number 1, Councillor Fluke, is that correct? Okay, members, the motion's been moved. Councillor Siddle, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out on Councillor Fluke's motion, there is no group called the Maldon Support Group, so I'm not quite sure who he's asking to be the opposition.
Thank you. So motion 1 is, sorry, Councillor Morgan.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'll just point out, I don't think Councillor Fluke may not have a difficulty in counting, but as far as I refer, the largest group that was elected were the independents, and therefore the Conservative group looked to them to form that administration, which indeed finally they have done. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just put you clear there. The Maldon District Independent Group are a registered political party, are the leaders. Other members are a support group, and there's non-aligned independents. So there is no overall. I believe the numbers of members that were voted in were Conservative, but we've got to a position where it's a very apt position for the functioning of the council. We move to the motion number 1. Members, I put this motion to you. Obviously, you've had the time to read the motion. Those in favour of accepting this motion, please raise your hands. Is that seconded? That's not seconded. So, has it? Sorry.
Sorry, Chairman. It was seconded.
Because you're a little bit far back, Councillor Stanford. My eyesight.
Lucky for you tonight, then, Chairman.
Thank you. I am. So, Tara, please. We've had a recorded vote requested for motion number 1. Oh, bear with me 1 second. Tara, just 1 second, sorry. Councillor Spenceley. Sorry, Tara.
I would just like to point out, and using the qualified privilege that I believe this chamber affords me, it is my honestly held belief that prior to the arrangements that were finally made, the Maldon District Support Group was going to do a deal with the Conservative Party under a different leadership. And that it does seem to me that at that time, as I recall, the situation that was because there were actually 7 members of that group then, we almost had a situation, and I do remember some conversations with various people regarding that, where I think that group was quite happy to accept being both the opposition and in leadership. So I do find this absolutely extraordinary, I've got to say, when there have been negotiations between the opposition groups to form a cohesive and cooperative opposition. And I do think it's a shame that we're resorting to such childish tactics in the chamber tonight. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, I object to that.
Thank you.
Apology.
You're not getting one.
Okay, members, I'm not going to have this. Okay, you've raised your points, Councillor Stamp. You've had your hand up. Councillor Fluke, would you please be kind enough to be seated? Thank you.
Chairman, just for clarity, and I'm sorry, but this has already been denigrated for what we're actually supposed to be trying to achieve for whatever reasons, whatever side of the chamber it's coming from. But can I just ask the Conservative leader, could you please confirm, because obviously there is a disagreement between 2 sides here, but you've actually turned around and said that there was no deal because the person who was a previous member of the Conservative group, had no right to speak to us. So would you be able, do you feel able to actually back that up, please? Because Councillor Durham's shaking his head. He was part of it and the words were frolicking. So if we are going to have to move on and get over it, we need to be telling the truth. And I'm not having a go, Councillor Spenceley. This is what was said at these meetings. And rather than this council yet again, it's dirty laundry in public, I do think it's really important that that is stated, whether I'm fibbing, which I don't think I am, or, you know, we were approached and by Councillor White. So can I have clarity, please? And I'd like it minuted, because this is actually putting slurs on people's reputations here.
Councillor Stemmer, I'll allow that. I'll allow the one comment to come back and then we will move on to voting on the motion that's been levied. Thank you.
But with respect, I think I can respond before we go to the vote. Thank you.
You can do, yeah.
Chairman, yes, well, I'll say what the comment was, and I think the monitoring officer will understand or recognise it. I stated that somebody was off on a frolic of their own, which is an old legal term of somebody doing something without the necessary authority. That is what I stated.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fluker, finally. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Look, I've heard what members say, and I'm glad that, Chairman, you used your position to inform the leader of the Conservative group that the overall majority of members is not the independents, because the Maldon Democratic Independent Group is a registered political party. And if one goes to the Electoral Commission, you'll see that they're there, and they've probably got their logo and probably their rules and constitution. So you can't really call them independent. They are a political group and they subscribe to the rules and constitution of that party. Chairman, I really don't need to add any more, but I find that given some of the comments during this debate, they tend to fly in the face of what the leader has said, which mostly I support.
Right, thank you, Councillor Fluker. The debate on this motion is completed, so a recorded vote has been requested. Tara, would you please be kind enough to take the recorded vote?
Thank you, Chairman. This is voting for motion 1. Members, if you could indicate for or against or abstain, please, when I call your name. Starting with Councillor Bassett, please.
Against.
Councillor Brown. Against. Councillor Burwood.
Against.
Councillor Driver.
Against.
Councillor Durham.
Against.
Councillor Durham.
Councillor Durham, Clark never heard you.
Against, Tara. Come in, Tara. Against.
Against.
Councillor Fluker.
For.
Councillor Jennings.
Against.
Councillor Lagan.
Abstain.
Councillor Lay.
He's not here.
No.
Thanks, Tara.
Councillor Miller.
Against.
Councillor Morgan.
Against.
Councillor Neal.
Abstain.
Councillor Shaughnessy.
Against.
Councillor Siddle.
Against.
Councillor Siddle Norman. Thank you. Councillor Nick Spenceley.
Against.
Councillor Paula Spenceley.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Stamp.
I've got to go for, because I seconded it.
Councillor Stevens.
Against.
Councillor Stilts.
I seconded it, but I'm going to abstain.
Councillor Swindle.
Against.
Councillor Thompson.
Against.
Councillor White, Councillor McGott. So, Chairman, the results from that are 2 for, 16 against, and 4 abstaining.
Just bear with me. Councillor Hayward, Tara.
Oh, I do apologise, Councillor Hayward. I'm sorry.
Totally forgotten. Not on.
Never forgotten.
I'll abstain.
That's an abstain.
Yeah.
Okay, so you just want to read those results out once more, Tara?
Yes, Chairman. So the results from that are 2 for, 16 against, and 5 abstentions.
Thank you very much, Tara. So members, that motion fails. So we move on to motion 2. Councillor Fluker.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm grateful. Chairman, obviously motion 1 has failed, and I think everybody's noted that the Liberal Democrats and the Conservatives have turned down the opportunity to be part of the administration. So, Chairman, I think in the best interests of everybody concerned, Chairman, and bearing in mind other motions that are coming forward tonight, I shall withdraw motion 2. Thank you.
Okay, is that supported by your seconder? Yep, thank you. Members, in that case, and thank you very much indeed, Councillor Fluker, I'm going to move to the motion tabled by Councillor Norman, on which is found on page number 5, which is E. Councillor Norman, I'd like you to please put your motion. Morgan. I did say Norman. Norman Morgan. I'm sorry, Norman. Councillor Norman Morgan. My apologies.
That's all right, Chairman. I'm normally called Clive for some reason.
Thank you, Clive. Members, Councillor Morgan, please.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for bringing this forward, because I think it hopefully will unwind an anomaly which has been sort of causing a bit of a difficulty so far this evening. Under the terms of the Constitution, following the Maldon Independent Group becoming part of the administration, the monitoring officer, quite rightly under the terms of the Constitution, advised you at that meeting that the next largest party would therefore form the opposition, which, as it was between the Liberal Dems and the Maldon Support Group, therefore there was those two leaders would therefore be leaders of the opposition, which obviously left the Conservative group in somewhat of a different situation. And the horrible assessment or thought was that we were actually therefore, by dint of part of the actual administration, which of course we most certainly are not. Therefore, there was a proposal that there be an amendment to the Constitution to show that in such a situation, because obviously the Constitution, I think, didn't envisage the situation we've got now, that where you have a situation where the largest party is not forming the administration, so therefore the leader of that party should be the leader of the opposition. However, these are not usual times, and therefore it has been agreed between both Councillor Driver and Councillor Stilts that there should be 3 opposition groups in the council in this municipal year going forward, and therefore I put the motion as stated there, that for the remainder of the municipal year the opposition leadership should be equally split between the leaders of the Conservative, Maldon Support and Liberal Democrat groups. Do I have a seconder?
Thank you, Councillor Stilts. That's seconded. Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Morgan. Members, the motion has been put. It's been seconded. Any member wish to speak on the motion? No, we'll put the motion to the vote. Agreed by assent? Agreed by assent? Yep. Thank you, members. We'll go back to the order paper. Excuse me, members. I'd like to call on Councillor Stevens with regard to motion D at the top of page 5, please.
I think B is the next
one.
Oh, hang on.
Chairman, can I ask why my motion's been dumped to the bottom? Have I offended you?
No, because what it is, I've turned the wrong page over, Councillor. One can imagine that there's several reams of tree here after what's been tabled, so my apologies, Councillor Stamp. There's Councillor Fluker there. I'd like to move on to page number 4, motions from Councillor W. Stamp, please. Councillor Stamp.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Stevens, but thank you. Members, I won't go on long. Maldon District Council has a statutory duty to promote and maintain high standards of conduct by its councillors and co-opted members. Section 27, little 2 of the Localism Act 2011, the Act, requires the council to adopt a code of conduct. It is not required in law for Maldon District Council to adopt a joint standards committee, but it is good practice. The Joint Standards Committee is an ethical committee with equal political balance should apply. This was agreed and adopted by full council on the 23rd of June 2020, but due to section 17 of the Local Government and Housing Act 1989, national legislation and the changing composition of groups is one trigger automatically requires that the political balance provisions reapply. Whilst I totally appreciate and understand that the legislation is complicated, after a long conversation with our monitoring officer, I learnt how complicated, Chairman. The equal number of seats to all groups applied with the inclusion of non-aligned members being offered seats. I would like to propose the following motions, Chairman. Can I read them all and then would you want to take them one by one?
What I'd like to do, Councillor Stamp, if it's okay, I'd like to go through individually because there's different motions need different voting requirements. So if you'd be good enough to table motion 1 and then we'll take motion 1 and then we'll vote on that and we'll go forward from there, please.
Would you allow me just to remind members, I'm sure some of you know, some of you maybe know, and forgive me if you feel I'm being a little bit rude by telling you, if anybody votes against any of the motion, it fails. So if you vote against, it fails. If you abstain, am I not allowed to say that?
You're absolutely allowed to say it, but I just want to cut in. I've checked with the monitoring officer. Motion 1 needs a majority. Motion 2 needs all members. So just to be clear,
it's 2 and 3, isn't it, Mr. Monitoring Officer?
Well, it depends what 2. Yeah. So 2 and 3.
Obviously, motion 1 is self-explanatory. If you vote against 2 and 3, the motion fails. But I would like to. But you can abstain. Thank you. You can abstain, but can I just say the spirit of this is genuine. There is no hidden agenda. This was actually agreed previously, Chairman, under the previous administration as well.
Thanks very much.
So thank you very much. I've got to propose motion 1.
Motion 1, please. Yeah.
To disband the Joint Standards Committee in its current form as proposed at the Extraordinary Council meeting on the 8th of June 2023.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor.
I so propose.
Thank you very much indeed. They've been proposed and they have been seconded when the motions were levied. So members, can we look at this motion by a show of hands, please? So those in favour of this motion, if you could please raise your hand. To disband. So this is in favour of what the motion says.
I'm sorry, but should there not be a debate?
Well, no hands went up, Councillor Fluker.
Well, I did raise mine.
Did you? Could you raise it a tad higher? I seem to be having a trouble seeing tonight from here.
Chairman,
Fluker,
I mean,
please.
all I was going to say was, Chairman, what Councillor Stamp is proposing is what was existing before, as far as I know, and it seemed to work very, very well. And now now that the council is very much departmentalised amongst different political groups and individual independent councillors, I think in some ways this makes a bit of sense. But Chairman, just to add weight to the debate, I wonder if you could confirm, and I don't want to put you on the spot. So what I'll do is I'll take you off the spot and I'll say, Chairman, through you, whether or not Mr. Quelch could confirm what the makeup of this committee is at the moment.
Well, I am.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. If you go to the rules, let me just find them. Yes, if you go to Rule 15 of the Council Procedure Rules, you'll see that it says the Joint Standards Committee shall comprise 8 members of the Council, political balance provisions apply, 2 persons appointed by the Council upon, that was upon nomination, it says by nomination of the Essex Association of Local Councils, that's changed now, but we do have already 2 parish councillors that have been appointed to that committee. And C, the independent person or reserve non-voting. 2 parish councillors are non-voting as well. So it's 8 members of this council that vote, 2 parish councillors that do not, and the independent person or reserve that do not vote.
Thank you, Chair. I'm grateful for that. It's the way these motions are framed, and I'm sure there's a governance reason why we did them in this order, but motion number 3, basically said there'll be 8 members with 2 members taken from each of the political parties. To me, that feels fair. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Any other member wish to speak on motion 1? Okay. So we need to vote on this motion, members. So could I have a show of hands to disband the Joint Standards Committee in its current form as put forward? Those in favour, please show. Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7, 4. Sorry, Councillor Bastians, that's 8. Yep, sorry, I can't see out my left eye, so problem. So that's 8, 4. Thank you. Those against, please, members. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. Yep. Confirm that. Yep. So that's 8, 4, 6 against. Those to abstain, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I'll abstain. So that's 8. So that's 8 abstentions. So that's 8 for the motion, and that's 6 against, and there's 8 abstentions. So that motion passes by majority. Councillor Stamp, thank you. Would you like to present motion number 2?
I certainly would, Chairman. Motion 2, the Council waives the overall political control of the authority, political balance, to reconstitute the Joint Standards Committee. Is it quite self-explanatory?
Yeah, do you know add any more to that? Thank you. Members, any members have any comment on that, please? I'd just like to remind members, because no hands have gone up in the chamber, this needs all members to agree.
Well, no one voting against.
Well, no one voting against, yes, that's exactly right, my apologies. That's
Chair, do you think we need a recorded vote? Because I can't read the mood of the chamber.
If you can record the vote and a seconded, we have a recorded vote. Thank you, Councillor Stamp. Right, Tara, thank you very much indeed. Tara, would you please take a recorded vote on motion number 2, please, by Councillor Stamp?
Thank you, members. As before, if you could just indicate for, against, or abstain, please, when I call your name. Starting with Councillor Bassinger, please.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Baum.
Abstain.
Councillor Burwood.
Abstain.
Councillor Driver.
Against.
Councillor Doran.
That's it. That's failed. It's failed. It's failed.
I think we don't need to go any further, Tara, because the motion's failed. Thank you very much. And because, thank you, Tara. Members, if 2 fails, I'll just check with the monitor officer. There's no basis for motion 3 to be put. No. So we won't put motion 3, members, but we will put motion 4 together. So, Councillor Stamp, would you please again?
Thank you, Chair. Motion 4 is that the Chair and Vice Chair be appointed, and there's a slight amendment here, Chairman, from the, it says by different political groups. I need to amend that to 4 different political groups and or non-aligned, non-political groups.
We now have a problem because we have a disbanded...
Chair and Vice Chair to be appointed from different political groups. That means you can't have 2 from one party. That's all that means.
Yep, thank you very much indeed, Councillor Stamp. I just need to refer to the monitoring officer a moment, members. So,
Yeah. Do you want me to say?
Yeah, please.
We now have a rather bizarre situation because the motion disbanded Joint Standards Committee, it stands disbanded. It no longer exists as a committee. And there's nothing further to add, members. You've disbanded the Joint Standards Committee.
Chairman, does that mean we can all misbehave because there's no Joint Standards Committee?
Absolutely not. I would think that the way that the council needs to work is in the way that we all hope it will.
Can I just make a point as well? The problem with that motion is that the Constitution set out in, I'm not sure the article number, talks about where complaints are made. The Joint Standards Committee has a role in that if there is a finding in any investigation that there has been a breach of the code. So members have now put officers in a very difficult position in that we now have confusion. So the only way, if members are rethinking this, it requires, because of the 6-month rule, it would require a motion. It would require a motion from 10 members to come in under Rule 4 if members want a standards committee, because it means that the Constitution now talks about a standards committee that that has been disbanded.
Thank you. Councillor Fluker.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Do you know,
Complete composition. That was the problem.
Just bear with us a sec.
Disbanded.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Fluker.
Sorry, Mr. Quelch. Yeah, I must admit, I do despair slightly because, maybe it should have been explained far more clearly in the context of motion 1 and the relation to motion 2. But we are where we are, and Mr. Quelch is absolutely right. But look, this council doesn't meet again until September, and I hope that everybody goes away and has a lovely August when we don't normally have a lot of meetings. And I'm sure that when council comes back in September, there will be a queue of people, Mr. Quelch, 31 I hope, saying that they want to revisit this matter, and then we can go ahead. And I'm sure that if there is any business on your desk, Mr. Quelch, I'm sure you can defer until after council next meets. But I think, I'll pause there because what I want to say I think fits in better with motion C. But yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Fluker.
Yeah.
No, thank you very much indeed. So we are where we are, members. So we can't proceed any further, but we will move down onto motions from Councillor Siddle on page 4. So Councillor Siddle, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just going to read the motion because it's a short time. To prevent the paralysis of the council business at full council meetings and to ensure that the council delivers on its business at a full council meeting, only one motion per political group made in accordance with Procedure Rule 4 can be put forward to the full council meeting. The non-aligned council will also be counted as one group. I so move.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Siddle. Any member wish to speak on this? Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to propose an addition to this motion, just to add on the end. If agreed, this motion is to take effect from the next full council meeting. Thank you.
It doesn't substantially change it, does it? It doesn't substantially change the motion. Yeah, we can accept that, Councillor Stevens. Thank you. Councillor Fluker, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think anything that depletes democracy, I think, needs to be looked at very, very carefully. But, Chairman, and I'm sure Mr. Quelch will agree with me, but we seem to have lost our way somewhat with motions coming to council, because for the benefit of new members and those that might not have read the procedure rule, basically all motions stand referred to the main committees for a decision. I think it was only because of a very clever wordsmith who asked that council decided a motion and that it shouldn't be referred, that seems to have become the default position, and it's not. And the whole purpose of bringing forward motions is it accelerates the process. Now, if somebody or one political group comes up with a really good idea through a motion, and it's to do with strategy and resources, the chairman has the right to send it straight to that committee or PG&A, or if it's a motion to do with something else, it could be the overview and scrutiny committee. But motions do provide a really good conduit for members to bring things forward, and with 3 opposition parties, I think that's really good. I think to restrict it in any way is not good, because you could get to the stage where only one motion comes forward, but that particular party wants to bring forward a second one. All motions, members, are basically in the gift of the chairman. If they're not compliant and they don't comply with governance, then the chairman can actually reject them, and I think his power of veto probably goes a little bit further as well. So, I would be very much against this. But before, if I've said something funny, councillors, then please let me know what it is. But yeah, I would be very much against this. But I do think there's a compromise here. And in April, Miss Hughes facilitated a meeting, and you'll have to forgive me because no one can remember what it was. We don't know. Mr. Dodson might know.
Just, Councillor Flew, just remember that you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, and according to my clock, I've got 1 minute and 10 seconds left, so I'll be very quick. So we can't remember if it was Strategy and Resources Working Group or the Corporate Governance Working Group, and we actually spoke about motions. Where we've gone wrong with motions is that, okay, there will always be that time when they come in on a Tuesday morning before 12 o'clock or whenever it is. But if members bring forward motions early, then committee services or whoever can pick them up with members and see where they want to go. And it may well be that officers might want to bring forward a report, which is how these things have always worked in the past. So, Chairman, I think that piece of work by Miss Hughes needs to be picked up on. Yeah, I agree with you. We don't want to logjam this council with, and I've been a great exponent of that in the past. But I think in this particular case, and I hope you'll agree with me, Leader, that I think this needs looking at. I don't think we should make a decision about one per group tonight, but I think we should follow the default referral route, which is the default position in our rules of procedure, and refer this for a proper discussion to the Corporate Governance Working Group, I'll say, and then we can talk about how we manage motions going forward, because maybe we should get to the stage where we shouldn't have this last minute rule. It should be a bit earlier. So, Chairman, the default position under the rule says that these should be deferred, and there's no reason why this can't be deferred and be dealt with by that working group before the next meeting of council, and then that way Councillor Spenceley will get our wish probably that it will be instigated at that. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Stevens, I beg your pardon. It would then be dealt with then. But that is the default position.
6 seconds. Thank you, Councillor Flew.
Have I got 6 seconds?
No, you finished within 6 seconds, which is remarkable. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I just...
Councillor Durham, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. For the benefit of new members, this is a relatively new phenomenon, because as Councillor Flew is quite right, I think for about 10 years as a member of this authority, there weren't any motions. I don't recall a single motion in the sort of 10 years until very recently, and it seems to have completely got out of hand in that we never had a situation where full council meetings had to be stopped due to timing. And there are two reasons for that. One is the propensity of recorded votes, which in many cases are a complete waste of time, not always, but in many cases, and the number of motions. So if members are going to continue to put motions to full council, the only way to stop the gross waste of everybody's time is to restrict them so that the most valid motions are agreed. And Councillor Flew is absolutely right. We are a committee, not a cabinet, and the majority of decisions are taken at committee. So there isn't, or there shouldn't be, a necessity to bring all of these motions, in fact any motions particularly, to full council.
Thank you, Councillor Durham. Any other member wish to speak on this one? Sorry, Councillor Basher. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. From my understanding, this is quite clear, and I think quite democratic. Each political party could bring forward a motion. So you could lobby, I presume, another party if you have two motions and ask them to bring that motion on for you. So in that way, we are, I think, being quite democratic with this motion. And I do think we are in a situation where council meetings are being logjammed and we are wasting so much time. And I think this can be dealt with right here and now. And I think it's quite clear. And I think we should deal with it so we can move on with the business. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bassinger. Councillor Stamp, please.
Yeah, I'm always banging on about democracy and you're taking it away from elected members. I'm sure the motion will fail, and it's the wrong motion that's going to fail, may I add. But I certainly won't be supporting it, because this is something that could happen at any stage to any one of us, and so we only have so many council meetings a year, and I certainly don't like being hog-tied or hand-tied, whatever the saying is, by anybody, which I think is quite obvious. So I'm afraid I won't be supporting this motion, because I think you're actually removing our rights as elected members. And what I would say is that me standing here, I got the most votes out of everybody sitting in this chamber from all, and sort of in proportion of the voting as well. So I would like to say I want to speak on behalf of my 927 who voted for me, who would not like us to be restricted at a full council meeting, because people watch this. I know I've got people within Burnham watching this tonight because they want to see how some of these motions are going. They're not raised on a whim, Chairman. Yeah, some people may think they are. I've watched and listened tonight when Councillor Fluker speaks. As soon as he speaks, you've got the no. You can see it's going to be voted against. You've got the body language, the humming and ahhing, the whatever. We didn't... You all right? Did you want to speak? Because the thing is...
Carry on.
No, the thing is, we didn't give any facial or fed-up expressions when the leader sat and spoke for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Please show the respect. You talk about us not being respectful as our little group over here. You shouldn't be disrespectful. Just because you don't like somebody, they can speak a lot of sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stamp. Councillor Thompson.
May I come back on that, Chair?
Not at the moment, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I will stand up because I'm short. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Durham and Councillor Battinger. I just want to say slightly different points. Like Councillor Durham, I've completed 12 years here. I don't recall a motion to council. And it has to be said, council, both members and officers, are infinitely better served by a report to council and not a rushed verbal update that the officers have to produce on the night, and we have to listen and take frantic notes. We're all infinitely better served by a well-written report that we can all read and have in front of us. And we wouldn't be in this position if we hadn't, had extra parts of meetings added in the afternoon for 15 motions that were properly withdrawn, and we all went home with nothing to do for the next 4 hours. We're only in this position because it's been, in my view, misused. I'm afraid it's misused. So many motions have been brought that, again, in my view, they're nonsense, or they should have been brought previously. For instance, one changing the schedule of meetings. If we wanted to introduce extra meetings of committees, we should have done it when we were agreeing the schedule, not a couple of months later. So, yeah, I fully support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Battinger wanted to come back. Councillor Siddle.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to let everybody know, there are 10 people watching this meeting tonight. So in terms of this, the other members have backed up what I was going to say as a preamble. This is to control the business of council. As we can see now, we haven't got to the business of council, and it's 8:45. So that just reinforces why I brought forward this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Siddle. Councillor Battinger.
Thank you, Chair. And just going back to Councillor Stamp's reference to democracy, these motions are actually stopping democracy. We are here to deal with the business of the people who voted for us. You may have more votes than anyone else, but we were all elected. And the residents expect us to deal with the business that we're supposed to be dealing with. These motions stop the business because we run out of time and we have to all rush through very important documents that have been written by officers. We rush through those because we have to leave the chamber, because by 10 o'clock we all need to go home. So democracy is being blocked by these continual motions. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. What's the? Excuse me, it's my chamber at the moment, Councillor Siddle. Thank you. Point of order has been called. I have to hear the point of order.
Chairman, procedure rule 4, because all of these motions as tabled, perhaps with the exception of mine and Councillor Morgan's, should all be by default referred. Our rules say quite clearly that they are referred to the appropriate committee. So we could have done that 3/4 of an hour ago, and then the appropriate committee can look at it and say no thank you, and we've just gone through. That's what our rules say. None of these motions, with the exception I think of the two I mentioned, should even be here. And in fact, if we're going to do anything else other than not to refer these motions, then we're acting contrary to our own rules.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I have a comment to make, and it is regarding the motions. I have a leaning that, again, it is a motion. The use of motions is a good thing for members. It's in the Constitution. I think we have to look at ourselves in the mirror when we raise a motion. I also disagree that the non-aligned councillors will be counted as a group, because the definition of non-aligned is exactly that. So I think we're being disingenuous to those members. But we've had a debate. We've had the motion put. The Councillor Siddle has spoken twice on the motion. So I'm going to put this motion to the vote, members. Okay, so those members in favour of this motion, please raise your hands. Thank you. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 15.
And Councillor Stevens, 16.
Do you have your hand up, Councillor Stevens? No? Okay. 15. So it's 15 in favour. Those against, please. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 against. 6 against. Thank you very much. And those abstained? Councillor Stevens and myself abstain. So that motion is passed and carried, Tara. Thank you. That puts us in a bit of a difficult position because the wording wasn't changed for going forward.
I think it was, wasn't it?
No.
So it was added.
Was it added?
Yes,
Chairman, I think we take it as read that it starts a meeting.
Thank you very much. I stand corrected. Well, I sit corrected. So we will then take.
Councillor Stevens did add that.
Did you add that, Councillor Stevens?
Sorry, what am I being asked?
Did you add that this scope for this motion going forward? Yes. As from tonight?
The piece I read out is, if agreed, this motion is to take effect from the next full council meeting. And my understanding was that you'd said, yes, that's the case.
From the next full council meeting.
And you said that that was accepted.
Yeah, but the next full council meeting.
Yes, the next one starts from the
Yeah, it starts from the next one, so we will go forward motion number 2. Councillor Siddle, please.
Okay, so
Make your second motion.
I will go straight to the motion again because of time. Despite the recommendation of the recent members' remuneration panel about allowances for special responsibility, it did not reflect the work and responsibilities of the Vice Chair of the Council and the Vice Chair of Overview and Scrutiny. And this motion recommends that the special allowances for these positions are brought into line with other Vice Chairman committees, and they are set at 25% of the basic allowance. I so move.
Thank you. Anybody wish to speak on this? Yeah, Councillor Stamp.
You want to speak? Oh, okay. Yeah, I do actually want to speak. I thought we'd already agreed this previously to the, I can't remember which meeting, I couldn't find it, when we talked, yes we did, Chairman, we actually discussed this at one of the strategy and resources or one of the meetings about these allowances. Councillor Spenceley spoke very eloquently and passionately because she had every right to. She worked really hard on the ONS, and I, no disrespect to Councillor Morgan, I was hoping she was going to get chair of ONS because she did her stripes, as I call it, last time. And I think she should have been elected as the chair of that committee. But I don't. We are actually talking about giving our taxpayers' money yet again to council. Are you all right?
Yeah, not really.
Councillors' allowances are going to go up again. Yeah, they already went up substantially because of the remuneration panel or whatever it was when it was agreed last time. So, you know, we're talking about struggling financially, but we're talking about giving our councillors more money. And I don't agree with it. So, thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Fluker.
I mean, I've already said that I'm going to give my uplift, my allowance to local charities, and I urge other people to do so. Chairman, I agree very much with what Councillor Stamp says. You know, this council is not Amazon. You don't put in an order and get it the next day. You know, we've agreed something, now we're going back on it. I mean, what on earth happened to civic pride and civic duty? You know, but, you know, we all serve on parish councils, we don't get paid. But, you know, Chairman, again, there's other issues around this and the whole issue around how we manage these allowances. I mean, maybe we should take a leaf out of Braintree Borough Council. They have a rule, if you don't turn up, you don't get your allowance that month. And I know that the chairman of the programme committees, as I'd call them, the main committees, on a 6-week cycle of meetings, they get paid £920 for a meeting and perhaps an agenda meeting. To me, that seems like a lot of money, but the remuneration panel didn't want to meet with me, so that was never put to them. But it does seem like a lot of money. And I note that the Vice Chairman's not here tonight, Chairman. So long since I've seen him, maybe we should put the pictures of Vice Chairman up as well.
Thank you, Councillor Fluker. Councillor Paula Spenceley, please.
Forgotten my name, Chair. Anyway,
No.
At the moment, I occupy the role. Obviously, this is about the role and not the person. But as it happens, I do occupy the role of Vice Chair of ONS, and I did last year. And I would ask that we don't consider this now and put it off till next year, as I'm quite happy to work for absolutely nothing like I have done. I've got 100% record of attendance at public meetings since I started, and last year I chaired ONS quite a bit as well, and I'm quite happy to carry on like I am, even though I have to say I'm as poor as a church mouse, if we can put that officially on record. It's absolutely fine, and I think maybe bring that forward again next year for another person, or when I leave the role. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Siddle, we've heard the division champion still. Oh, sorry, Maddie. Councillor Thompson.
Apologies, Chair. Sorry, I'm still short. Stand up. I was a bit slow to do that. Well, I would like to applaud Councillor Paula Spencer on her attitude. I think that's very good and generous and very civic-minded of her. But the idea of allowances is that everyone and all residents get a fair crack, and that this role isn't left to people who don't have to work, don't need the money, don't have to give up work in order to do it, which I used to have to, I don't now. But in any case, I think for equal work there ought to be, and equal time spent on things, there ought to be equal allowances, and I'd be happy if someone brought forward a motion, put it what we currently have, or even a bit less, and then share it out fairly. But I do think what's wrong is that the Vice Chairman of a committee that does the amount of work that ONS does should have the same as other vice chairmen, because as Councillor Paul Spencer pointed out, they do often have to chair. There are often meetings in between, officer meetings, outside bodies, especially the programme committees. It isn't just a matter of, the meeting takes 3 hours, so that's what the allowance is worth. So, and I do have some faith in the remuneration panel. It met about 12 years ago when I was a newish member, and I was interviewed then, and I think they do deal with these things fairly. So sorry, I've got Councillor Fluker is distracting me, and my ADHD makes that quite difficult to concentrate on you. So yeah, I support the motion as it stands, and if someone comes up with a better idea, I shall support that later.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thompson. Members, we've had this. The motion stands. I'm going to put the motion to the vote. Those in favour, can you please raise your hands? Nice and high. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Count 14. Yeah, count 14. Yep. 14. That's 14. 4. Those against, please. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 against. Thank you. And those abstaining? 1, 2, 3, and myself, that would be 4. So that motion is carried. Thank you very much indeed, members. We now move on to the motion, which I miscalculated earlier on in the agenda paper, which is actually Councillor Stevens, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just read the motion out. It's short and sweet. To prioritise essential business at full council meetings, motions at each full council meeting shall be debated at the end of the public part of the meeting and subject to time.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Stevens. Councillor Neal.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like some clarity, actually. Obviously, it states within the motion that all motions will be debated after at the end of the public meeting. Can we just confirm when that is in the agenda? Is that in P&C? Is that after the public have been able to make their questions? Or is it just before the chairman's asked to do important urgent items? Thank you.
That would be before, if there's any business that needs to be conducted in private. Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Fluker.
Thank you, Chairman. But the whole idea, the motions could apply in relation to items that are going to be considered as part of business that evening. So we could find ourselves in a really difficult decision whereby we could make a decision, and then at the end of the meeting, a motion could come forward. That could negate what's been decided. I mean, Chairman, we've now agreed that, I don't know if we've agreed that we're going to have a maximum of 5 motions or 7 motions at council. because I listened carefully and it wasn't clear. But if we follow the rules, I don't see any reason why we can't just have them in a normal place. And perhaps, Chairman, we'll be more vigilant in applying Rule 4. And you have the right to refer these straight to committee. It's black and white in the rules. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Thompson and then Councillor Siddle.
Chairman. I believe, and Mr Quelch might need to confirm this, it's within the gift of the chairman to move items up and down the agenda anyway. So if the chairman feels that on a particular evening motions can wait till the end of the agenda because they don't apply to business during the evening, then I would have thought we'd be happy with that. And for that reason only, actually, I won't support it because I think the chairman should be able to deal with them on the way through if need be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
If he or she thinks fit.
Thank you. Councillor Siddle, please.
Councillor Fluke has really given the reason why to move them at the end of the meeting, because if it is on the business of the agenda, then the recommendation at that particular time could get amended to any motion that's come forward. So we would do the council business first, and therefore, if that needs to be reflected in some way, we could alter any recommendation as that part of the business meeting, and therefore at the end, the motion won't be necessary. So it would make things much more efficient and effective if we move these motions to the end.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Siddle. Members, I believe we've no more hands up. So what I need to do is for this motion, could I have a show of hands for the motion, please? So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4. Those against, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Myself. 15. Yeah, 15. Any of those to abstain, please? So that's one abstention. So thank you. So that motion fails. So thank you very much indeed. Members, we now move on to agenda item 12, which is questions in accordance with procedural 6.3, of which notice has been given. I can confirm there has been none. We move on to agenda item 13, which is a report, appointments to committee. This agenda item is found on pages 103 to 108 of the agenda pack, and I call on Mr Dodson to present the report, please.
Thank you, Chairman. There were a number of positions in committees that weren't appointed to by Council at the previous meeting. So this report seeks to give members the opportunity to make those appointments. I don't normally refer to the recommendations in the introduction, but I think it's required on this occasion. So recommendation 1, that the Council appoints a non-aligned member to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee for the municipal year, needs to be undertaken. Recommendation 2, I believe, will need to be deferred.
Yes,
Chairman.
Yeah, thank you.
Recommendation 3 refers to the allocation to be advised by the Programmes Performance and Governance Manager, who has advised. And if you bear with me 1 second, I will pass on that advice. So the recommendation 3, that 2 members are appointed to Appointments Board for the municipal year 2023-24. The reason for the recommendation is that 1 seat is allocated to the Leader of the Opposition and then 2 other members politically balanced. To be politically balanced, 1 seat would be Liberal Democrat, 1 would be District Support Group and 1 Conservative. In light of these 3 groups providing an opposition leader, further to the motion earlier tonight, it's now suggested that the 3 opposition leaders are allocated to the remaining seats, which would then give the political balance. And then under recommendation 4 is that Councillor Swindle's appointed to the vacant Liberal Democrat seat on the Licensing Committee for the municipal year 23-24. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr Dodson. Members, any comments? Councillor Stilt, please.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I'd actually like to give up my seat on the Appointments Board and actually nominate a member of my group.
You can, because it's set as opposition leader, isn't it? You can't.
Yeah, just gone through with you. You've picked up the advice of the monitoring office, so Thank you. Councillor Fluker.
Chairman, I mean, if you're saying that's not right, then recommendation 2 just speaks to 2 members are appointed to the appointments board. It doesn't mention. I think Mr. Quelch has woven in the leaders of the opposition and everything else that 2 members are appointed to the appointments board for the municipal year political group allocation to be advised. It means one would have to change the recommendation to bring forward what you've just suggested in relation to deputy. And the other thing, Chairman, about this is, you know, we could find that one of these groups, and they may well, because I don't know everybody in this chamber, there may be a terrific HR person who is not a deputy leader of a group. And that could be really useful, you know, to have somebody on there. You know, I've been on these committees for many years, and you know, and it really is important to, you know, have the right sets and skills on these meetings. So, you know, if Councillor, I believe that actually recommendation Roman 3 actually basically says we can appoint whoever we do. I appreciate it makes sense maybe to have the deputy leaders or the leaders of the opposition or whatever, but if that's not the case, and I don't know who Councillor Stilts wants to send, but I'm not even sure we can send well, I don't think so. You can send a substitute even. One needs to think these things through, I think, sometimes, Chairman, before we get to this stage.
I'll just refer to the monitoring office. Just give us a moment, please, members.
Appointments board. Appointments board, 2 members to serve. Shall I read it out?
Yeah, I think so. Help members understand it.
Again, Rule 15 of the procedure rules says the appointments board is to be 2 members to serve in addition to the leader or deputy leader, opposition leader or deputy, and chairperson or vice chairperson of strategy and resources and performance governance and audit committee. Well, as we now have 3 opposition leaders, I think as Mr. Dodson has already explained, in order to make, and that fits in with political balance as well, there is now no scope for 2 other floating members, as it were, because all are assigned based on their designations, their special positions, because we now have 3 opposition leaders, not 1. And also, the board has to be politically balanced as well. Those 3 opposition leaders actually ensure there is political balance, as I understand it.
So, Chairman, if you'd allow me to come back while Mr. Quelch is focused. I mean, you know, we're going to go through this thing later on tonight with the Finance Board. There has to be a willingness on members to sit on the, you know, we can't say to people, just because you hold this position, you've got to be on that committee. There has to be a willingness. And if that willingness isn't there, for whatever reason, from one of the leaders of the opposition, then there has to be something in place to allow it. And I think the fallback position, Mr. Quelch.
Bear with me, Councillor Fluke, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I'm happy to give way.
Speaking.
Yeah, I just sort of think that the fallback position is these. You know, you could apply this 2-member thing and still include. You know, I don't know if the leader of these other parties want to sit on this appointments board or not. But you know, we can't just cut it off if somebody says they don't want to sit on it.
Thank you, Councillor Fluke.
Yeah. The Rule 15 says it's opposition leader or deputy. So the point would be, bearing in mind the Constitution, that there is obviously 2 options there. There is the opposition leader. If the opposition leader either doesn't want to sit or can't sit, then the deputy would sit in the opposition leader's place. Now, can I just say a point here? This is really important, that in my view, as monitoring officer, important, that if members take on the position of being the leader of a group and that makes them opposition leader, then they're actually saying that they're prepared to take on the responsibilities that the Constitution says are linked to that position. And I think it's important that members understand that. So if a member doesn't want to do it, there's a question mark over really should they be in that position, bearing in mind what the Constitution says. This is, and can I just say, this isn't my constitution, Chairman. This is the council's constitution. I'm just telling you what your constitution says, and I'm giving you the implications of that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Quelch. Councillor Siddle, please.
Yeah, thank you. The appointments board is when we recruit a strategic high-level position. And because we are recruiting for a high-level strategic position, which means that the leaders will be working with that person, it's really important, I think, that the leaders are represented on that appointments board. Otherwise, it makes a nonsense, as Mr. Quelch is saying, of being a leader and being on that board. And the whole point of this is as a leader, you are taking a strategic position, and you will be interviewing someone in a strategic position like Ms. Lucas, who was the last person to be interviewed. So that's why it needs to reflect that composition.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Siddle.
Well, I think Mr. Dodson's already said that it's got to be politically balanced, and so those two members are now the two additional opposition leaders that we have. Rather than one, we have three.
Yeah.
So there is no longer two floating members.
Yeah, okay, I'm with you there. Thank you. So, members, in the expedience of business tonight, because we still have some very important business to transact, I'm going to go to the recommendations. Little one, that the council appoints a non-aligned member to the overview and scrutiny committee for the municipal year 2023-2024. Can I have that by assent, members? Agree. Thank you very much indeed.
Have we got a name?
We need to nominate.
Very good point. So we've agreed to do that. Of the non-aligned, who is nominating for that position?
Councillor Siddle Norman, that's the only person.
Councillor Siddle Norman? Sorry, I couldn't quite... That's good, yes, that's Councillor Siddle Norman. Thank you very much indeed. Just bear with me. That's lovely. Okay, we're going to defer little 2. 3, I think we've just discussed and reached an agreement that it is the leaders or the deputies of the opposition, and we have a simple decision to make on that little 4, that Councillor NJ Swindle is appointed to the vacant Liberal Democrat seat on the licensing committee for the municipal year 2023-2024. Do I have that by assent, please, members? Agreed. Thank you very much indeed.
Chairman, I don't think you've agreed 3 by assent.
Yes, we did, didn't we? Did I not agree that by? No, I don't. Did I? My apologies, members. Is that agreed by assent? Yeah. Thank you. Very kind of you. Okay, we move on to agenda item 14, which is an adjournment of the meeting, which is... You don't need it. No, we don't need to. We adjourn the meeting at 9:10 and we recommence the meeting at 9:10, 13 seconds. Thank you, members. So we don't need that. Don't need that. Okay, now we go to agenda item 15, which is a report from the Local Government Association, which is found on 16, my apologies, which are found on pages 109 to 148. And I'll ask Councillor Siddle to stand to raise some information, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. The LGA provides the opportunity for a peer review of member councils to be undertaken once every 5 years at no additional cost to the council. The council requested through the previous section 151 officer that a financial peer challenge be undertaken in the last financial year. The review is about identifying areas of possible improvement within the council and implementing best practice across the council. The initial findings of the peer challenge were reported back to members via presentation of the peer review on the 1st of March 2023, and a repeat briefing was provided for members earlier this week. A detailed report was produced by the peers, and this will be published on the website, with the recommendations now responded to by officers via a draft action plan. As I mentioned earlier in my statement, we're holding a top team away day in August to agree priorities and to ensure financial stability, which is one of the recommendations. As the recommendation set out, it is proposed that there will be a new finance working group which will represent all political groups at the council, as well as a non-aligned representation. We need to ensure that there is alignment of the MTFS to the corporate plan and other council strategies, as this will improve how the council operates. This will mean a golden thread from strategies to services and implementation of objectives is financially sound. If we adopt these approaches, it will strengthen the financial processes of the council and work towards our corporate plan objective of smarter finances. So I'm just going to go through the recommendations, and that is little 1, that the contents of the Finance Peer Challenge Report at Appendix 1 be noted, that the Council's response to the 6 key recommendations set out in the draft Financial Peer Challenge Action Plan at Appendix 2 be approved, that subject to little 2 being approved, to delegate approval of the Council's response to the other recommendations set out in the draft Financial Peer Challenge Action Plan at Appendix 2 to the Finance Member Group, that subject to little 2 being approved, to approve the revised terms of reference for the Finance Member Group set out at Appendix 3 as detailed in the response to Recommendation 5 of the draft Financial Peer Challenge Action Plan, that subject to little 2 being approved, to approve the revised membership of the Finance Member Group as detailed in the response to Recommendation 5 of the draft Financial Peer Challenge Action Plan at Appendix 2 and Appendix 4. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Seconded. I'd now like to hand over to Ms. Lucas.
Thank you, Chair. So I think the leaders set out most of the key things that I wanted to cover, but just to add that a little bit of context around the finance peer review itself, as set out at paragraph 3.2 of the report, I just wanted members to note that the challenge itself is not an inspection. It is to use the expertise and knowledge of peer authorities to use that information to help improve the financial processes and practices of the council. So as part of the process, the peer team spent 2.5 days at the council and spoke to more than 25 people, and they considered 5 themes which were set out at paragraph 3.4 of the report, which covered financial leadership, financial strategy, planning and forecasting, decision making across the council, financial outcomes, and partnership and innovation. So I would just like to quickly cover the 6 key recommendations that were made as part of the Finance Peer Challenge, and they are set out at paragraph 3.6 of the report. So the 6 key recommendations were 1, to further develop the medium-term financial strategy by linking it to other strategies and plans, and to include sensitivity analysis as soon as reasonably practicable. Secondly, to arrange a top team away day for officers and members post-election to agree the priorities and to ensure financial stability. Thirdly, they recommended that we should provide mentoring support to our senior leaders, both members and officers. Fourthly, to have more clarification of the roles for both members and for officers. The 5th recommendation was to establish a corporate finance board, which would own the corporate plan and finance for the authority. And the 6th key recommendation was that all staff and members should acknowledge the urgency of the financial position, and urgent action should be taken to develop a realistic and robust plan to deliver the required efficiencies and savings to ensure ongoing financial sustainability. So the council's response to those key recommendations is set out in the action plan at Appendix 2. In addition, there's another 30 recommendations which are not being asked to be voted on this evening, but instead to be referred to the Finance Member Group for their consideration and response, and for that group to also monitor the implementation of those key actions. So the leaders already made reference to recommendation 5 of the report, which is to have the proposed new proposed terms of reference for the Finance Member Group, and that's set out at Appendix 3, and that would fulfil the function of the Corporate Finance Board, which was suggested by the peer reviewers. And the Finance Member Group would be responsible for oversight of the MTFS and savings strategy for the authority, and for making clear recommendations for approval to the Strategy and Resources Committee and or the Council. And the last point I would just like to bring members' attention to is that the recommendation to approve a revised membership of the finance member group, which was that it should be comprised of all political group leaders, plus the chairman and vice chairperson of the Strategy and Resources Committee and the Performance, Governance and Audit Committee. And the purpose of that recommendation is to ensure that there is a no silo approach across the council so that clear recommendations can be made for the council's consideration. So I think that's all I'd like to say at this point. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Ms Lucas. Thank you. Members, I open the chamber. Councillor Paula Spenceley, please.
Okay, so I'd like to speak to little 5, please, because I think given the current constitution of the council in terms of the different groups, that it would be appropriate for us to have political balance within the finance board, and obviously at the moment that won't be achieved just by having the chairs. So I suggest that the chair positions remain in it, but that we appoint in a way to ensure political balance with extra members, and also that we need to allow for substitutions where possible, because I do take the point that while you take on the leadership role of a group, you take on responsibility for all things, but we might have people within particular groups who would be better at finance, and that would then be for each group to decide whether they want their chair. Presumably if a group's put forward a chair for S&R, that's the person to be doing that. But I think that, you know, I'd like to amend the proposal at 5 to include political balance and also to allow for substitution. Thank you.
Okay, well, we're going to go through.
I'll second that.
We're going to go through the individual recommendations on a one-by-one basis, just to let members know. Councillor Stamp.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I ask for the monitoring officer to explain why we're looking at changing the finance working group when it was only just appointed last month, please? I think it's important that all members understand that you, most probably you, have decided that you don't have to adhere to that 6-month rule, and I think it's important we all understand why.
You certainly can, thank you.
Yeah, okay. We're back to the procedure rules. And Rule 12, rescission, this is what Councillor Stamp is referring to, rescission of preceding resolution, which says no motion to rescind any resolution passed within the preceding 6 months, no motion or amendment to the same effect as one which has been rejected within the preceding 6 months shall be proposed unless the notice thereof given in pursuance of Rule 4 bears the name of at least 10 members of the council. In other words, I interpret that to mean that where there is an attempt to rescind or amend a decision of council within the 6-month period under Rule 4, it requires 10 members rather than 2. However, the report of the officer is made under Rule 5. If you go to Rule 5, Rule 5 says there can be dealing with the issue of motions and amendments which may be made without notice. And if you go down to sub-rule 6, adoption of recommendations by officers. So, because Rule 12 talks about if there is to be notice under Rule 4, that requires, within a 6-month period, that requires 10 members. But this is a report, this report is from an officer and it's pursuant to Rule 5.
Yep, just come in quickly.
Sorry, I know, I do understand because we've had a conversation, but how can you keep changing the rules to suit whatever agenda you want to put on or bring a paper? We've all been told that there is, you just said you have to have 10 members, which I think Councillor Siddle brought on one of his motions earlier. So now you're changing it for an officer report. I'm actually genuinely concerned, confused.
I read out to you what Rule 12 said. I haven't changed Rule 12. It's always been like that for as long as I can remember, since I came back to the council in 2017. I have merely read out to you what it says, and my understanding of that, and members can read it themselves, and if the chairman disagrees with me, then he can rule, he has the final word. But I read that out to you, and it talks about Rule 4. Notice under Rule 4 has to be by 10, not by 2, because normally it's 2. This is under Rule 5, sub-Rule 6. So that doesn't apply. Rule 12 doesn't apply. That's my understanding of the rules. The chairman has the final ruling on it.
Thank you, Mr. Quelch. That is what the Constitution says. Councillor Fluker.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Look, I've known Mr. Quelch long enough to know that he wouldn't say what he just said unless he was confident he was right. And I can also put members in their comfort zone because I can remember an exchange with Councillor Boyce, who I'm pleased to say has been moved to St. Peter's Hospital today. And he admitted, that's the wrong word, accepted that maybe he'd misinterpreted something, but I believe your interpretation is correct tonight. Chairman, very quickly, firstly, can I pay tribute to our former 151 officer, who over the last couple of years I spoke to on several occasions with regards to a lot of the issues raised in this report, and in particular, the discounted items raised in the 3 schedules of savings that were presented to S&R last year. I'd urge all the new members to look at those. Overall, Chairman, I don't recognise anything new in this report, and some of the issues highlighted have been obvious and have been discussed for some time, particularly so the drawdown of reserves. It does nevertheless provide us with a much needed wake-up call to where we really are. I'd also thank the LGA peer, Dawn Garton, the DCS at Maldon Borough Council, for her professional input into the report and recognise the excellent work that she's done on her own MTFS at her own council. And I hope that as part of this ongoing review, she agrees to visit us again to share her wealth of experience. Chairman, I shall now turn to report, page 110, paragraph 3.6. Number 1, Chairman, I've asked before, but does this mean we're now going to get a fully costed corporate plan in accordance with the motion agreed by Council? Little 2, can you confirm that if this is to happen, and from what the leader said earlier, this meeting is going to go ahead, this away day is going to go ahead, but Chairman, it needs to happen straight away. I think there was reference to the end of August or whatever. It needs to happen straight away, Chairman, because but when Council meets next time, we'll be 5 months, nearly halfway through the municipal year. And if we take the advice in the report, that will be around 1 month from when we should be starting our own budget setting. So in my mind, this working group or whatever needs to start meeting immediately. Little 5, listening to what officers have said, this has been referred to as a group, a working group and a board. So if it's a working group, well, can you confirm what it is? Because if it's a working group, you can send substitutes. And in number 6, Chairman, to me that could mean providing for minimal savings or a cost-neutral budget, something some members have been banging on about for the last 2 years, to the point that some of them are getting quite stoked over the issue. Chairman, with the proposed board stroke working group membership, we really are lucky enough to have some highly qualified, innovative, experienced and committed members. And that said, and to give them a clear directive from Council, I propose adding another recommendation, Chairman, that in the best interest of value for residents, businesses and customers, and the protection of our residents' cash reserves, because that's what they are. They're our residents' cash reserves. The Finance Board Working Group delivers a cost-neutral budget for the municipal year 24-25. I believe that can be done. And I believe, reading the LGA report, they believe that we can move very close to doing that. I believe that could be done. Chairman, that is my proposal as an addition, as an additional recommendation to stop hemorrhaging money, basically.
Thank you very much. Councillor Siddle.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it is quite interesting that in 2019, when the previous corporate plan was produced, there was no costing whatsoever with that. So we are doing much more than's been done in the past. The away day will be happening either on the 9th or the 16th of August. I've been pressing the LGA peers to come back on that. Once we set up the finance working group, it can meet as immediately as the people are available to it. Interestingly, that Councillor Fluker commends Dawn, the officer from Maldon. They have a corporate plan with less detail than ours and no cost at all in it. So it's good that we are doing more than the peer already that has recommended in terms of that situation. So in terms of our budget report, we are setting out the finance and service plans and how that is overseen operationally by directors. So we are implementing that. And yeah, part of the finance group that we will set up will look at those things that Councillor Fluker is proposing. And the sooner we set it up, the better, I agree.
Thank you very much indeed.
I did make an amendment, and I'm delighted that Councillor Siddle agreed to it.
I would like to have Councillor Durham, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I've read the report and I watched the recording of the briefing the other night, and it's quite clear that the LGA peers spent a long time producing this report and went into quite a lot of detail. I have a mixed experience of LGA peers. I think it's fairly reasonable to say, as Councillor Fluker and Councillor Thompson will testify, because they have been known in the past to carry out an in-depth peer review, and then when one of the lead members didn't like the conclusion, believe it or not, they changed their recommendations more or less immediately, which was bizarre in the extreme. So I have reservations about the LGA. Although I'm actually on the LGA peer list anyway, but I do have my doubts based on previous experience. I'd like to take this opportunity to highlight the commercial income or lack of commercial income for this to help with our budget deficit. And I want to take issue slightly, I'm afraid, with the leader's comment that nothing had been done in the past. Councillor Fluker will recall, because he was ably my deputy in 2017 when I stood at the front there where the leader stood tonight, and I said to members at that time, we are going to face financial difficulties unless we get a commercial strategy. We looked very hard. We had some very exciting projects. We looked at a cinema and other facilities on the prom. We looked at building a crematorium. We formed a crematorium working group, and now we've missed out, as has been said, because a commercial operation is building one in Wood and Mortimer. Every single commercial idea that we put forward, unfortunately, the members at that time said, oh dear, we haven't got the expertise, we're too risk averse, we don't want to take the risk. And unfortunately, I think partly because those members at the time did not appreciate the financial difficulties that we were in, didn't agree to pursue any of the commercial projects. So it is grossly unfair to accuse previous administrations of not pursuing a commercial policy, because we would have done had the memberships then supported it, and we would no doubt, as is being proved by the crematorium, probably be in a much better financial position now had we been allowed to do it. But as I said, I look at this LGA recommendation, I support it with the caveat that, well, I support it with trepidation and some nervousness. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Durham. Councillor Nick Spenceley, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this is very new to me, but I do have a sense of déjà vu, because having served on two different governing bodies in two different sectors over the last 7 years, I've been a recipient of peer reviews and reports on turning around finances. So I'd just like to comment briefly on a few of the recommendations. So recommendation 6, the reviewers talk about efficiencies and savings. And as Councillor Fluker has rightly said, we need to move urgently on that. The response is a savings strategy. My fear is that the efficiencies side of things will be overlooked. And if you look at the report as a whole, it's about smarter working. It's about a finance team who are well trained and resilient and flexible. It's about accountability. There's a lot of issues about culture and the way that we work that are in there. And one of the dangers that I've seen with a savings strategy is that you look at the imminent crisis and get very operational and look at, oh, we'll cut this line, we'll take 10,000 off that and 5,000 off this, and lose the bigger picture. So I won't go on about that, but it's just a concern I have. With the other recommendations, there's some interesting ones. 13, do we not have any benchmarking data? That surprises me that we're not using benchmarking data, and that really must be an urgent consideration. And I'd urge that benchmarking data is made available to members, because we're not financial experts. We don't know whether a particular council is doing well on this budget line. Is it average? Is it in the lower? Is it in the top percentile? The lower quartile? Where are we compared with other authorities? That would be very valuable, certainly to me. Number 19, and then I think I'll shut up, because Councillor Durham's made a very good point about commercial income, and I absolutely agree with him. Of all the places I've lived, apart from Cambridge, I think Maldon has fantastic commercial possibilities because of its heritage, its facilities, its location, massively underexploited. But number 19, consider empowering parish and town councils to take on more responsibility. Now, without dumping on the parishes, I'm a parish councillor as well, as are a number of us, I think there's a lot there, because I feel in my parish role rather cut off from the district council, and I think there's tremendous potential there for working together with the parishes to help us out of this situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spenceley. All members who wish to speak have spoken. Anybody else? Councillor Stevens.
It's a very minor point. It's not a point of debate, just a point of fact. I said earlier on that some of the groups have been misnamed. In Appendix 4 of this part, on page 147, I don't know what can be done now because this is a report being put to us. Is it too late to just amend that? Because it does refer to the Maldon Independent Group and it should say Maldon District Independent Group, please. Thank you.
Thank you. That's just a point of clarity there, so that's well picked up. So, members, we've got 5 recommendations. 6, my apologies, over the page. It has been a rather long evening. Sorry, Councillor Driver, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is just really a request for some clarification relating to 3.65 on page 110. So it talks about the establishment of the Corporate Finance Board, which will own the corporate plan and finance. And I just want to have some understanding of what that in practice means. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Driver.
Through you, Chair. Thank you. So that was the exact wording of the recommendation from the peer reviewers. But obviously, in our response to that recommendation, we've taken into account the constitutional makeup of the council, and that's why we've come up with the proposal we have in terms of the membership, the name, and the terms of reference for the group to fit in with our own constitution. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Stilts and Councillor Siddle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just trying to find the bit that Councillor Spenceley was alluding to, which was about assets and the town councils, and it actually says that we relinquish the assets to the town councils and parishes, and that could be the park. So I'm sure Maldon Town Council would love to take on the prom.
Any comment? It's more of a statement. Thank you. Councillor Siddle, please.
Thank you, Chair. So I would like to make a change to the membership of the Finance Board that Councillor Paula Spencer referred to earlier, and the fact that it is political balance. So therefore, I would recommend that we increase it to 10 for this municipal year, and that there is an additional member from the District Support Group and an additional member from the Liberal Democrat Group.
Okay, is that seconded?
Is that seconded? John, Councillor Dry.
Okay, so if when we vote on that motion, we'll take that forward. Councillor Stamp.
Can Councillor Still repeat that, please? I didn't hear him exactly.
Okay, so I'm putting forward a proposal that Councillor Paula Spenceley put forward, which was that the finance member group is politically balanced. So therefore, an additional member from the Liberal Democrat group will be appointed, an additional member from the district support group will be appointed.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just have clarity then on the finance? Is it a finance board? Is it a finance working group? Do the same rules apply if it's a finance working group or a finance group? So anybody can attend when you have these meetings. I think it's really important we know. Thank you.
Some time ago, I asked 4 questions, none of them have been answered.
Thank you, Chair. So I understand that the sort of difference in terminology might be a bit confusing. So the terms that the peer reviewers used was a board, and obviously within our constitution we don't have kind of room for that for a board as such. So the existing finance member working group, it was through discussion agreed that members would prefer to just call that a finance member group rather than the finance member working group. But in essence, the mechanics of it would work in the same way as a working group at the moment. So the essence of the group would still be working as a working group. It would just be called a finance member group instead.
Chairman, I'm grateful for the comments of the 151 officer. So from what she says, obviously substitutes can attend. Thank you. Unless, of course, there's 10 votes or Rule 5 or...
Well, I don't think substitutes.
Mr. Quelch.
Yeah, I'm just to clarify on the substitutes point. I mean, unless I'm not aware of some resolution, which maybe my colleagues will be able to tell, but under the rules, under the council procedure rules, substitutes are for committees. Now, of course, when members set up a working group, they can appoint substitutes. So, and that's the thing to do. It's not an automatic right. So, and I think in the past members have done that. They've set up a working group, and then if a member can't attend, there's a list of substitutes that can take their place. So substitutes can be worked into the composition of the working group, but members need to decide on that. It's not an automatic thing like it is for committees, because the Constitution says for committees, someone from the same political group can be a substitute for a member. That doesn't apply to working groups. So if you want to have substitutes, then members need to expressly deal with that, so that you do have a substitute arrangement.
And if the question was in...
Is it changed? Yeah. Oh, is it stat out? Okay, I'm corrected by Mr. Dodson, right? Yeah. Perhaps you can say that.
Sorry, Chairman, the question was in 2 halves. One was to do with substitutes, which I don't actually think was the actual hot topic. The hot topic was whether, if it's a working group, all members are allowed to attend but not vote. So I look forward to my invite to the away day if I'm available. I'm not sailing my boat. Thank you.
I'll just ask the monitoring officer. Yeah, thank you very much. I just wanted to go to the monitoring officer, but I will give way to the monitoring officer to Mr. Dodson first of all. Thank you.
Yeah, I would need to confirm the detail in the minutes, but it's my understanding and memory that at the Statutory Annual Council it was agreed that substitutes can be allowed in working groups.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Dodson. So that should answer the questions. Chair, just let the monitoring officer. Anything to add?
No, I'm pleased that's what I wanted to hear, that there was something that made provision. That's fine, in which case you don't need to make express provision. And I'm not sure what the wording is, but I'm sure it's clear. The working group arrangement, my understanding, again, unless my colleagues again can tell me otherwise, because there's some resolution I'm not aware of, don't recall, that members that are, although all members can attend a working group, they're not really there to participate. They're there to listen. And so when we talk about substitutes, all members can come. It's not to participate, because otherwise there's no point in having a working group of limited members, because then the whole council becomes the working group. But as Mr. Dodson has clarified, there is a general provision that allows for substitutes. So it deals with that point of substitution.
Thank you. Councillor Siddle, please.
Yeah, just to clarify, the away day is for leaders of groups and for chairs of committee. The finance, I know, with LGA peers and LGA officers. So there are two separate things occurring.
Members, thank you very much indeed. We have 5 recommendations here, but if we wish, no, we've got 6 on the recommendation 2. There's in
made a proposal earlier on.
Okay. Oh, what was your proposal, Councillor Siddle? Sorry, Councillor Fluker.
Well, do you know what? Based on my experience, that's one job I never want again, I tell you. Chairman, what I proposed was that in the best interests of value for residents, businesses and customers, and the protection of our residents' cash reserves, the Finance Board / Working Group delivers a cost-neutral budget for the municipal year 2024-2025. I mean, that is a huge ask, but it really is the outcome that we should aspire to. Otherwise, we're going to be taking, you know, £1.5 million of taxpayers' money to prop up our budget. Chairman, I'm happy to add a word so that we can move forward quickly, and that would be to the Finance Board Working Group endeavours to deliver a cost-neutral budget, because, Chairman, at the moment, if at the moment the way this is all worded, if they were to improve things by £1, they would be successful. So I don't want to put too much on the Section 151 officer, but bearing in mind we can all pitch up now at the meetings and listen to what these clever people are doing. You know, I think that's a fair and proper directive from council to try and achieve. This is what we should be trying to do. Otherwise, we will be the group of people that has to borrow money in 3 years' time to actually make this council work. Thank you.
Councillor, thank you very much. The only thing I want to add is to which particular recommendation are you adding that to?
I see that as a new recommendation, and I see that as an additional one. So whether or not I'm proposing something or whatever, but I just think it's an additional recommendation. I mean, it could be. We seem to have lost it. If you look at the report, there were 6 recommendations. There were 6 key areas in one area, and then in the recommendation there's only 5. So there's a bit of confusion there, Chairman. But I mean, I propose this in the spirit that it's meant, and I think it'd be a shame if it fell by the wayside because of some procedure. But perhaps, Chairman, you could consider allowing it as Roman 6. And that we all of us aspire to achieve that. It's only an endeavour, and I'm heartened that the leader liked that word.
Thank you very much indeed. I will accept that. Is that seconded? Was that Councillor Neil? Thank you. But what I'm going to do, members, now the debate's come to an end, I'm going to take each of the recommendations that are on the order paper, and so we're going to go through each one and we'll vote on each one individually. So first of all, we've got little 1, that the contents of the Finance Peer Challenge Report at Appendix A be noted. Members, is that agreed by assent? Noted, thank you. So we have now little 2, that the Council's response to the 6 key recommendations 1 to 6 set out in the Draft Finance Peer Challenge Plan at Appendix 2 be approved. Is it agreed by assent? Okay. I'd like my dissent noted on that one. Number 3, that subject to 2 being approved, to delegate approval of the Council's response to other recommendations 7 to 36 set out in the Draft Finance Peer Challenge Action Plan at Appendix 2 to the Finance Member Group. Agreed. Thank you, members. Little 4, that subject to little 2 being approved, to approve the revised terms of reference to the Finance Member Working Group as set out in Appendix 3, as detailed in the response to recommendation 5 of the Draft Finance Peer Challenge Action Plan at Appendix 2. Is that agreed, members? Agreed. Agreed. And finally, well, no, there's another one to come. Little 5, subject to 2 being approved, to approve the revised membership of the Finance Member Working Group as detailed in the response to recommendation 5 of the draft Finance Peer Action Plan at Appendix 2 and summarised at Appendix 4. Is that agreed, members?
Chair, there's an amendment to that to make it 10 members.
10 members, I apologise, Councillor Siddle.
Politically balanced and one from the
not aligned.
Non-DSG and one from the Liberal Democrat.
Got it. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you, Councillor Siddle.
Chairman, sorry, just to clarify, there was a Councillor Spencer who made an amendment that was seconded, and then Councillor Siddle changed. So I just want to check that.
Yeah, it's the same motion, I think. So.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's what I want to check.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. And Councillor Fluker, would you like to just put your recommendation so that the clerk can capture it, and then we can vote on that?
Thank you. I'm sorry to lumber the members of this group with such an aspiring target, that in the best interests of value for residents, businesses and customers and the protection of our residents' cash reserves, the Finance Board Working Group endeavours to deliver a cost-neutral budget for the municipal year 2024-25. Chairman, if it doesn't go through by assent, I'd propose a recorded vote. Thank you.
Is that seconded? Or is it seconded, but we did agree by assent first of all? If it agrees, members, do you agree that by assent? Agreed. Any dissent? The group seems unanimous in the chamber.
Those 2 members. Yeah, we need to appoint them, don't we? That's the point. They need to be appointed, yes.
Okay, members.
Yeah.
Members, thank you. I apologise for the length of the meeting. Members, we will probably go over 10 o'clock. We have incredibly important business to get resolved tonight. So I just want to presence that. We also now need to appoint those 2 members. So we need one from the, Councillor Stilts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to nominate Councillor Neil, please.
Is that seconded? Next is seconded by Councillor Stamp. So Councillor Neil is by the District Support Group. Thank you. Councillor Driver.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to nominate Councillor Nick Spenceley.
Is that seconded? That's seconded by Councillor Jennings. Is that agreed, members? Thank you very much indeed. And then we don't need any more, do we?
That's it.
That's it. Thanks, members. Very, very good. We now move on to agenda item 17, which is a report, the medium-term financial strategy, update and saving strategy. This is found on pages 149 and 152. And again, I call on Ms. Lucas, please, to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of the report is to update Council on the revised medium-term financial strategy position and to set out the requirement to urgently identify a saving strategy to address that budget gap. Members will note that at the Council meeting on the 22nd of February of this year, the 2023-24 budget was agreed and the MTFS projections over the next 2 years were noted. The budget for this year relied on a drawdown from general balances of £421,000 to fund the planned expenditure for the year. A budget gap in 2024-25 of £2.872 million was noted, and that rose to £3.5 million in 25-26. And that was based on the assumptions that were set out in the report of that date. Just like members to note that would have left general balances below the minimum recommended level of 2.6 million next year and in a negative position by 25-26, which is obviously unsustainable. So following the closure of the accounts for the last financial year and subsequent to the findings of the finance peer review, which members have just agreed and noted, we have reviewed the high-level funding assumptions for the current year and for the next 2 years, and they have been further refined. In particular, the business rates position for the Council has been better than forecast, and it is anticipated that some of this growth can be built into the baseline position, and this would help to close the expected gap for this financial year and would improve the position in the subsequent years. In addition, as noted by the peer review, we have looked at the future funding levels and revised some of our assumptions around the growth in the council tax base and the level of business rates going forward. And taken together, they result in a net improvement in our anticipated funding levels of 1.3 million in the next financial year and just under 1.5 million in the financial year 25-26. I would just like to say at this stage that the other budget assumptions, including future cost pressures, have not been reviewed or refined in detail at this stage, but this work will obviously be carried out as part of the process and brought back to members for further consideration at a later date. So in the interest of time, I won't go through the tables at 3.7 and 3.9 of the report, but I think they're reasonably self-explanatory and just show the improved position that I've just summarised. So just to move to paragraph 3.11 of the report, just to emphasise that even with that improved funding position that's noted, we still need urgent action to identify a savings strategy, and we need to set out clear recommendations to address the budget gap. And that also feeds into the additional recommendation that was just agreed by Council in terms of aspiring to have a completely closed budget gap for the next financial year. So it is recommended that the Finance Working Group was tasked to lead on that savings strategy and report those recommendations back. And again, that recommendation has just been agreed. So I think the recommendations themselves for this report are really just to for Council to review the position that I've set out within the report, and also to agree that requirement to urgently identify the strategy to address the budget gap. Thank you.
Ms Lucas, thank you very much indeed. There's two recommendations. I'll come to you in a second, Councillor Stamp, thank you. Little one, that the Council review the medium-term financial strategy MTFS position. And little two, that the Council agree the requirement to urgently identify a savings strategy to address the budget gap. Do I have a second, please?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Siddle. Councillor Stamp, please. I now open the chamber.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Could I actually ask when the costings, we actually asked for statutory and non-statutory services to be costed. We've actually asked for this over a long period of time at different council, whether it's strategy and resources, or I know it was mentioned at PG&A as well, and it's been mentioned at full council. And I know I saw a form, some sort of form when Mr Leslie was still here. A lot of work was being done behind the scenes. Now that is critical information that needs to come to this council or the working group or whoever it goes to. I personally like to see it, to see if any more work's been done on it. I can't find my original email that I got with the table on those, so forgive me, members, otherwise I'd have shared it before the meeting. Can I ask the officers when that will be coming, please? Thank you.
Councillor Stamp. Ms Lucas.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think as I've previously said at one of the committee meetings, and that piece of work is ongoing at the moment and is being actively looked at and refreshed by officers. Obviously, we were waiting on the recommendation of the Finance Working Group being set up, but the intention is that piece of work will be taken back to that group at the earliest opportunity for their consideration. So I don't want to make an absolute firm commitment that it will go to the first one of those group meetings, but if not the first, then definitely the one after that. So that work is ongoing at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fluker.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. First question really is in relation to the outturn for 2023. Chairman, am I correct that had we have not had an additional £400,000 worth of interest received on our investments, which we should thank the Tories for crashing the economy for that our outturn would actually have been almost 800,000. And secondly, yes, I remember the reports that Mr Leslie sent to members, some draft reports around the cost of providing statutory and non-statutory services. And I've also received a report from Mr Leslie about the cost versus income of the corporate projects team. So perhaps you could update members with regards to that as well. I'm quite happy to share you the information that I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comment?
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Fluker. Yeah, the interest income obviously did contribute towards the position that was reported for the financial year last year, 22-23. I would just, however, make the point that the interest rates were high as a result of the high inflation rates, and obviously that contributed significantly to the cost pressures that the council faced. So it's a double-edged sword, and actually the fact that we gained on the interest on the one hand, it was probably more than offset by the additional cost pressures we felt as a result of that inflation. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Durham, please.
Yeah, thank you. Just a very quick question. We've seen today that the government has agreed a public sector pay increase. Is that going to impact on the MTFS, please?
Through you, Chair. Thank you. The local government's not subject to that national pay award. We've got our own pay award, and that's currently under consultation with the union. So, yeah, that we won't be directly impacted by that announcement. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Members, there's no more hands, so I need to move these recommendations. I'll move them both. Agreed? Thank you very much indeed, members. We move on to agenda item 18, which is the Provisional Outturn 2022-2023 report presented to the Strategy and Resources Committee on the 22nd of June 2023. This is found on pages 153 to 168. I'd like to call upon the leader to speak before we hand to Ms Lucas, please.
Thank you, Chair. This Outturn report has retrospectively been approved for many years, as it follows on from the budget report approved at February's Council, and reflects previous policy decisions made by the Council and its committees during prior years. The decision by Strategy and Resources not to approve the recommendations in the report demonstrates how important it is that members seek clarification before a committee and gain an understanding before they attend. Officers are very willing to work with members to develop knowledge and assisting them in any questions that they may have. The consequence, if we don't do this, it may ultimately prevent the work of the Council progressing. I know from my own experience that reports can contain a lot of information and often complex data that members are not familiar with. Members should be reviewing the reports in advance and asking officers any questions if they are unsure of the details provided. The previous decision at S&R would have a detrimental impact on Council activities and projects, especially the funded work that we've committed to. This includes the work of the Burnham-on-Crouch pontoon. There are various factors that impact the committee meeting, and we have learnt from that situation. If there are particular items in the report that members do have further questions on, it would make sense for these to be discussed separately, and if necessary to request an amendment to the recommendations to enable the rest of the commitments to be approved and implemented and the work of the Council to proceed. So the recommendation as set out at 2 is that the Council approves the recommendations set out in the Provisional Outturn 22-23 report at Appendix A. Ms Lucas.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to draw members' particular attention to paragraphs 3.3 and 3.4 of the report, where it states that it should be noted by the Council that the approval of the commitments made by the Council and the carry forward of those monies is required in order to continue the normal operation of the Council. And I just really wanted to emphasise that point. If the recommendations aren't approved, then it's highly likely that the Council will be unable to fulfil all its statutory and legal commitments, and many existing projects would have to cease or be paused while a review of all those commitments was undertaken. And it should also be noted that as many of those commitments are funded by grants, it may be and probably will be the case that some of those grants would have to be returned because they couldn't be used for the purpose which they're intended. In relation to the movement in earmarked reserves noted at 3.4, again, I just want to draw members' attention to the fact that the majority of those use of reserves have already been approved by Council or its committees during previous financial years. And therefore, in the majority of cases, they are just for noting. There is a smaller number of reserve movements which did form part of the decision of that report. For example, the use of the equalisation reserve for council tax and business rates, which was to counter timing differences in funding. Yeah, I would just really urge members to consider carefully the implications of not approving the recommendations of the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms Lucas. Councillor Fluker, Councillor Stamp.
be brief because I know it's 10 o'clock and I'm very keen to support the nighttime economy. Chairman, one could argue this item's already been dealt with under delegated powers at S and R, but I mean, I don't think it should go back there for review, but I think we all know the importance of agreeing the recommendation tonight. Chairman, given the political balance of the council moving forward, I hope that in the future, to give weight to some of the comments the leader said, lead members will try and identify issues in advance of agenda meetings and after consultation with their respective political groups. I always remember all the agenda meetings we went to, we looked at trapdoors, we looked at members where they were likely to go, and it avoided this sort of thing. And I would also ask officers, and I'm sure Mr. Quelch would come up with a rule somewhere to support this, but when we're dealing with high impact corporate recommendations, we always preface it with a recommendation to council, because this could have come to council tonight as a recommendation of the SNR that it had been basically thrown out. Chairman, there are two items that I'm unhappy about, and both concern the drawdown of and movement of reserves. Members will have noticed that the new homes bonus, this is based on the amount of new homes we build, £390,000. To realise that sum, our residents in Burnham, Southminster, Maldon and Havebridge have had to suffer massive disruption, including light, noise and air pollution. And basically, there's no other way of dressing it up, basically eat dirt for 4 years in Southminster. In Appendix 3, it says that this pot of money, the new homes bonus, is going to be used as funding to support the general fund pressures, i.e. that money for building those houses is going to prop up the council. Given the sufferance of our residents, do members really agree that without some form of control that this is appropriate, and should we not at least try and spend some of that £390,000, you know, on the good folk of Haybridge, for example, to try and give them a little bit of extra infrastructure, and likewise 421,000 received from the additional business rates, which in my mind could be partly used to support and attract new businesses to the district. This is what we've been trying to do. Now, whilst I accept that the general fund is under a huge amount of pressure, Chairman, to try and get some balance in this and to try and get some understanding by residents, I'd propose that no funds from these two reserves are allocated without the approval of the Strategy and Resources Committee. I mean, we know that we're going to have to take some of this £900,000 almost, and use some of it to prop up the general fund, but that's what it says. But I think members should have a little bit of control over this sum. We've already asked for the budget and timeline for the local development plan review, which I know is coming forward. But I think this is right, Chairman. This is, you know, members, particularly with new homes bonus, a lot of people have suffered an awful lot through the building programme in the district, and I think that we should just have a little bit more control over that. I mean, I know some of this money has probably been allocated, but this is a new council, and I think we should look very, very carefully at how we spend these pots of money. Chairman, I made a proposal there.
Thank you very much indeed. Ms. Lucas, please. Yeah.
Thank you. Just to clarify on the new homes bonus reserve, so that was assumed within the budget for the previous year, and essentially that money has already been drawn down and used within the last financial year to balance the budget. So members will note that the balance as at 31st of March 2023 is zero. So in essence, there is no money left in that reserve to utilise for a different purpose. So that one is really just for noting. I would make the wider point that I have in previous committees that I think it's unhelpful to view new homes bonus as a specific pot of money in relation to building new homes, because that is not the way that the government is treating it anymore. It is just part of the overall funding settlement for government, and they treat it as funding available for the provision of general services, and as such that is how the council is treating it. So to not use it in that way would just increase the budget gap further, and in light of the previous discussion and recommendation about setting a balanced budget for the future years, I think not to use it in that way would probably be unhelpful. In terms of the business rates income, again, a similar point, although we are expecting that additional business rates income to come in this year, we are starting the financial year in a position where we were going to have to draw down on reserves for that amount. And by not using that income for that purpose, it will just leave that budget gap unaddressed and will increase the pressure on the council to find savings of that amount for the future year. So in essence, it will just increase the size of the financial challenge that members have to face when looking to set that balanced budget position, which you've just agreed. So I would advise, from an officer perspective, that those monies are used for the purposes which they are set out for in the report, which is to ensure that the overall general fund of the council is balanced for the forthcoming year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Lucas. No, I'll just wait to move to Councillor Stan, please. Thank you.
I think Councillor Fluke nicked some of my ideas, even though we haven't spoken about it, because I actually would like to see some money go to the flood alleviation scheme. I thought we were actually putting money aside. I'm looking at Mr Dodson, because I know that we discussed about trying to get funding, or Mr Holmes, to try and get some funding to contribute to the flood alleviation scheme and the Environment Agency, because I thought, my understanding is that a deal has nearly been done, or we're not that short of money. So if we can somehow move some money around, or I don't know where you're going to take it from. I was hoping with Councillor Fluker that we could actually do that to actually support the residents of Haybridge. But before I sit down, because obviously Miss Lucas has just explained we can't do that, I'd like to ask Councillor Siddle, why did you target Burnham on Crouch? Well, there's other funds that are going to be done. So why did you target Burnham on Crouch?
Sorry, I didn't target Burnham on Crouch. I explained that the Burnham on Crouch was one of those items that we've received funding for. I can list some of the other things if you'd like me to, but it was just an example of the funding that we've received that we weren't going to allocate for the project that we've been given it for. So we would have been in an illegal position in terms of that situation and probably had to give the money back. In terms of the Environment Agency, they have the funding in place for the flood alleviation scheme, and that will be coming forward in the future and look to complete. So in terms of that situation, yeah, using that money when the Environment Agency is going to be allocating funds is not the right thing to do.
Thank you very much. I think Mr Dodson.
I asked Mr Dodson. I didn't ask the leader that question.
You
I
asked
actually
the
asked
leader
Mr
to clarify.
Dodson.
So
yes, but
Mr.
not
Dodson's
that question.
Respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. The position was, I think, probably 2 years ago, the council wrote a letter of comfort to say that as the flood alleviation scheme progressed through the business planning process at the Environment Agency, that should there be a shortfall, then this council would look to consider if it was able to help with that at the time. And that letter helped in terms of progressing through the business planning scheme that they went through. And they progressed to the next level and subsequently put in an internal funding bid for the overall funding. So my understanding at the moment is that the options that are on the table can potentially be fully funded and that they will consult on them in the coming months. In supplementary to that, there was an agreement in one of the first reports that came through in relation to one of the council's commercial projects, that should that go ahead and a capital receipt be achieved, then that would be considered for the funding if there was a shortfall, if that makes sense.
Through you, Chair. I think so, but I still think this council needs to see it as a priority because it has been going on long enough.
Thank you. Any other members wish to speak? Yeah, my apologies, Councillor Durham. Yes, indeed you did. So, Councillor Durham, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Chairman, the thorny subject of new homes bonus has been discussed here many times before. And we did at some stage several years ago try to resolve that we would ring fence the new homes bonus that we got for projects such as Councillor Fluker described. But then, as now, we weren't able to do that because that money was required to prop up the general fund. It could be said, had we have been more enlightened with our commerciality back then, as indeed other authorities such as Braintree had been, who are able to completely ring fence and use their new homes bonus for things other than propping up their general fund, we would be in a much better position. But on the back of that, we would also, or we could also be sitting here today in a much worse position had the last fully Conservative administration not actually taken £1.8 million out of our cost base. We would be really in difficulty, because that's what we achieved back in about 2017 to 2019. Literally nearly £2 million out of our costs at that time. But we are not in the fortunate position to be able to use our new homes bonus for anything other than supporting this council. And I'm really pleased, actually, if Mr Dodson is correct, that the Environment Agency have agreed to fully fund the Heybridge flood alleviation scheme. I'm sure it's not to the £11.4 million that the previous scheme that was looked at will be, and I would be very interested to actually get details of that scheme, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Durham. Members, we have a recommendation too. The Council approves the recommendation set out in the Provisional Outturn 2022-20. No, I'm not taking any more questions. Thank you, Councillor Fluker. 2022-2023 report at Appendix A. Is that agreed by assent?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you very much indeed, members.
I presume that includes my proposal that I made, so thank you, Chairman.
My apologies. No. Yep. You put that proposal forward. The Council staff seconded that. Yep, that includes that. Thank you. You're welcome. Okay, members, we move to agenda item 19, which is West Maldon Community Association Management Committee. We need to appoint one member of the council as representative on West Maldon Community Association Management Committee for the ensuing year, and from the chair, I nominate Councillor Shaughnessy.
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Siddle. Is that agreed unanimously? Thank you very much indeed, members.
Thank you, Chair.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Members, number 20, business by special circumstances considered by myself to be urgent. You'll be pleased to know I have none. Members, thank you very much. I draw this meeting to a close at 10:15, and thank you very much for your contributions. Please drive home or walk home safely. Thank you.
Well done, Simon.